How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you here?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final time. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final
Hey everyone, what's up? Happy Tuesday. We got a really full schedule in front of us today. Hope everyone's doing well. I am exhausted. I feel like it's got to be at least Thursday. Like it can't only be Tuesday, right? Like why am I so exhausted? Why am I so exhausted? It's only Tuesday. How am I going to get through the rest of the week? I have no effing idea. But I do know today we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. We are going to spend the bulk of our time watching our old friends, the Revolutionary Communists of America. We haven't checked back in with the Revolutionary Communists of America since we talked about them dreaming of overthrowing the federal government and raising the red flag of communism above the White House, like overtly. The Revolutionary Communists of America are one of many different far left groups. They have an organized presence in over 30 US cities. They have been recruiting massively all over the country. If you ever see a sticker on like a lamppost or something with Karl Marx pointing at you and it just has a QR code. In fact, I just saw one the other day. Actually, someone just sent me a poster yesterday, literally yesterday, of from the Revolutionary Communists of America. Let me show you. So literally yesterday, someone sent me this poster. This is in New Haven, Connecticut. This was like the Revolutionary Communists of America seen in the wild. Fight Trump and the Democrats. You know, I don't think they could be more clear that they're not Democrats. And even still in the replies, check this shit out. Check this shit out. Even in the replies, the Revolutionary Communists of America are hanging up posters saying, fuck Trump and the Democrats. Neither party represents the working class, with a giant ass hammer and sickle. And what do we have in the comments? Do you guys want to guess what we have in the comments? Who do they think they're fooling? Right there. Right there. There are literally conservatives in the comments saying they're secret Democrats. They're just pretending they're not Democrats. It's like, oh man. There's nothing you can do to reach people like this. There's nothing you can do to reach people that will look at a sign like this out in the wild and actually say, oh, the communists are secret Democrats. Who do they think they're fooling? Oh, we are on the dumbest team. We are on the dumbest team. Well, we're not on any team is the thing. We're not on any team. We are the bad news bears of the internet. We have no team except the absurd mishmash of characters that happens to find their way to this YouTube channel every day at 5 p.m. So we're going to be watching the Revolutionary Communists of America. This is a video from about a month ago, and it's a little bit on the nose, so I had to watch it. How to have a revolution in the United States. Guys, do you think the Revolutionary Communists of America want to have a revolution in the United States? I'm pretty sure the Revolutionary Communists of America want to have a revolution in the United States. Not only am I pretty sure the Revolutionary Communists of America are not Democrats, based purely on the signs that they are hanging up in public all over the country, I'm also pretty sure the Revolutionary Communists of America want to have a revolution in the United States based on the fact that there is a hour-long video on their YouTube channel called How to Have a Revolution in the United States. Yeah. So we're going to be watching this today, and, we'll learn what we got coming. Now, listen, the Revolutionary Communists of America, to me, are not one of the most dangerous groups. The reason I don't think they're actually, that dangerous is because first of all, they don't embrace queer ideology. Actually, when I had the leaders, I've actually talked to the leaders of the Revolutionary Communists of America. They came on the channel probably, a year and a half ago, something like that. They flat out told me they don't consider queer to be Marxism. And so they don't actually welcome it into their organization. Now, I have also infiltrated their recruiting calls, and I know they have queer people on those calls. So, who knows what way that's going to go. But the Revolutionary Communists of America are actually kind of relatively reasonable. They're a little cult-like. You'll see this from the intro video when we watch it. They're the ones that if you see a whole bunch of communists with hammer and sickle shirts that are all red protesting in the streets and they're waving a giant hammer and sickle flag, they're very cult-like in their behaviors, but they're not unpleasant. They will actually talk to you. The Revolutionary Communists of America is one of the few groups that I've ever actually been able to get to engage with me in a dialogue. And they kind of came in and they talked their talking points and they wanted to sell their newspaper and all that. But you know what? At least they're more pleasant than other communists we've had to deal with. I will also say this. So for people saying, who's funding them? Who's funding them? How is this funded? The Revolutionary Communists of America are funded entirely by membership dues, voluntary donations, event ticket sales, and publishing, kind of the typical big four things that we see funding revolutionary socialist groups. The Revolutionary Communists of America ask each of their members to give them 1 day's wages per month. You can voluntarily up that to 2 days' wages. They have programs if you need to be on less than that. But so people are actually giving a full day's wage at least to this organization just to be a member. In return, they get newspapers and stickers that they get to go and recruit people to their organization. And they do a lot of recruiting. I mean, they post videos all the time about them recruiting on New York City subways, them stickering all over the place. When I was in Boston for Pride weekend, actually, I wonder if I can actually just find it. How do I search my own account? Oh, I guess right here. Hang on. Boston. How do I find my pictures? I want to show you the pictures from Boston Pride weekend. Is this them? Yeah. So when I went to Boston for Pride weekend last month, so basically the area that you're seeing in Boston, this is basically Back Bay. And so this is the area where the giant Pride parade in Boston was actually staging. So they had all the different groups that were in the parade. This parade was massive, by the way. This parade was at least 2 hours long. I didn't even make it through the whole parade because there were just that many groups. There were a whole bunch of communist groups in it. The Party for Socialism and Liberation was in it. The Democratic Socialists of America were in it. There were a whole bunch of very, very, very leftist groups. But one of the things that was interesting is, so Victor and I were walking around before the parade started, and as soon as we hit Back Bay, and we're talking areas around the public gardens, areas around the Copley Mall and stuff like that, for people who know Boston, we started seeing these signs everywhere. So the night before the Pride Parade, the Revolutionary Communists of America in Boston had come out and they were stickering lampposts. They were stickering subway stations. This is one of the busiest subway stations in all of Boston. It's literally right next to the public garden. You can see the Revolutionary Communists of America are stickering there. It says, fight queer oppression through class struggle. This one says socialist revolution, not rainbow capitalism, and someone has scribbled it out for some reason. Immigrants don't exploit us, capitalists do. This was all over the place. No worker is illegal. Fight queer oppression, that's the same thing. We already saw that one. No worker is illegal, another one. No war but class war. So this was like, and they do this stuff all the time. They do these stickering campaigns on college campuses where they have these stickers where it's Karl Marx pointing at the camera saying, "Are you a communist?" as a QR code. They recruit through the unions. They are very, very active, and they are growing exponentially. They have these big meetings in Philadelphia where they talk about, their platform and all that stuff. Now you might think, well, Karlyn, you tell us all the time that revolutionary groups don't want to run in elections. So why are they forming a political party called the Revolutionary Communists of America? They're actually very explicit about this, and they'll probably say it in this presentation. They have no desire to run for public office. The reason they are forming a political party is to give people something to join so that when the revolution starts, they're already prepared and they're already organized, because they do believe we are in late stage capitalism. They do believe that we're not far away from the proletariat rising up. These are Marxist Leninists. They study the Russian Revolution like all the time, perpetually, constantly. You can see the Leninist way. These are not Stalinists. These people reject Stalin. They reject Mao, all that stuff. And so they are basically forming this political party not to be able to run for office, but to be able to be prepared and to be organized and to give people something to join and to give people something to get involved with while they're waiting for their expected revolution to pop off. And so we're going to be hearing from them today, and that's what we're going to spend the bulk of our time doing. They're an interesting group. They're relatively plain spoken. They are unapologetic about their beliefs. They love, one of the reasons I don't actually watch them that much, they love publicity. They love it. They love it when I watch their stuff. And that makes me a little leery of them, to be honest with you, because like they want me to push their stuff out there, and so I'm kind of like, maybe I don't want to. But they are actually a really relevant group on the left. They show up at all the protests. We see them around all the time. So we do have to kind of like keep an eye on them and just know what they're doing. So that's what we got going on. Now, a couple other things before we get started. I want to just take a moment to just watch this video right here. Let's do a little check-in with James Lindsay and the woke right bullshit. And the reason I'm doing this on stream is I wanted to watch this video and I just haven't had a chance yet. So please indulge me for a few moments. I got a couple other things I want to talk about. And so I just wanted to do a quick check-in. Now, for those who missed it, Joel Berry, who of course is the managing editor for the Babylon Bee, Joel Berry the other day tweeted, "This won't be easy for people to hear, but there are only about 200 professed Catholics still living in Gaza, and they all support Hamas." It seems to me that Joel Berry, Zionist, editor for the Babylon Bee, is kind of saying, maybe it's not such a big deal if those 200 Catholics die in Gaza because they're Hamas supporters anyway. And so what's another 200 Catholics? How many people have we already killed in Gaza? It's just not a big deal. I don't even know why people are upset about this. It's totally fine if Israel murders 200 Catholics in Gaza. So that happened. And then there was some predictable backlash about that happening, in which, people were upset. Catholics were upset. Christians were upset. I'm not a Catholic or a Christian, and I kind of look at this and I go, I don't know how the ever-loving F you get to justify murdering people because they happen to be in a part of the world that is fighting with Israel, and you're just so bent over and fucked by Israel, Joe Barry, that Benjamin Netanyahu is basically like pounding your ass right now, bro, and you're like turning around and like saying, oh, why don't I just give you a blowjob after you fuck my ass? Like, that's basically what Joel Barry's doing. Can we all understand this? It's gross. It's fucking disgusting. So, of course, there was a lot of backlash against that, and people were really upset. But do you know who came to Joel Barry's aid? Do you know? We haven't talked about James in a while, but of course, James and his friends were right there to come to Joel Barry's aid, because Joel Barry is a Zionist, and that is the only thing that matters. To James Lindsay and his classical liberal ilk, Literally the only thing that matters is, do you unapologetically and unabashedly support Israel? Are you allowing Benjamin Netanyahu to pound your ass and then take his dick out and put it in your mouth? Are you doing all those things? And that's all that matters to James. Probably because he wishes he was getting pounded in the ass by Benjamin Netanyahu as well. But you know, whatever. And so when I saw James post this video of what he calls the incredible Carrie Smith. Carrie Smith, a woman who is obsessed with me. Carrie Smith, a woman who spent her life trying to destroy me. Carrie Smith, a woman who literally wrote an essay about how I'm her abusive mother when I've talked to this woman less than 5 times in my life. The incredible Carrie Smith. I had to watch this video. So it's about 3 minutes long. And I want to see what their defense of Joel Berry is, saying, you know, it's not that big of a deal if he's advocating for murdering Catholics because they're in Israel, bro. So we're going to see. Hang on. We're going to watch this real quick.
And then what's happening with Joel Berry? I mean, so he's a very influential person on social media, where this is thriving at the moment on X. He has a big following on X, and he is a well-known conservative voice and a Christian.
He's a
voice,
liberal
and runs the Babylon Bee, right?
He's a liberal.
And because he hasn't fallen in line with this, like a lot of the influencers have, they're going after him, and they just picked something. And the thing they have,
they just want to target Joel Berry because Joel Berry's not going along with the woke right, and you know they're just unfairly targeting him, and they just pick something off of his timeline, and they're just twisting what he had to say just because they're targeting him because he's not the woke right.
happen to pick, I think, is ridiculous. But it could be anything. The target is not what they're saying it is. The target, he's the target. They want to take him out at all costs. And so they're trying to now all post like how first of all they're lying about what he said, but they're trying.
Do you know what they said?
They're lying about what he said. They're lying about what he said. Carrie, we have eyes. Carrie, we can read. Carrie, we know what he said. He said, this won't be easy for people to hear, but there are only about 200 professed Catholics still living in Gaza, and they all support Hamas. That's what he said. Carrie. Hang on, I gotta fix the sound. Sound went out. Hang on. StreamYard hates me.
What did they say he
What was
said?
the issue?
So there was a Israel in bombing Gaza accidentally hit a church, and there were
I heard about this.
three Christians who were killed.
Israel accidentally bombed a church in Gaza and killed 3 Christians. Israel accidentally bombed a church. Accidentally. Just like Carrie Smith accidentally tweeted about me over 1,000 times within a 1.5 year period. And you know how I know Carrie Smith accidentally tweeted about me over 1,000 times within a 1.5 year period? I took screenshots of all those and put them on survivingcarriesmith.substack.com because she was engaged in a massive smear and harassment campaign against me. And it was totally accidental. Right, Carrie? Just like Israel accidentally bombing a church and killing 3 Christians. Sure, accidental. I'm accidentally watching this video right now where Carrie Smith is accidentally wearing another stupid fucking hat. Accidentally.
Okay. So this is what I know. I wasn't online a lot the past few days, but he was pointing out that most Christians have fled Gaza because of persecution, and that there are only about, I think he said 200 publicly practicing Catholics in Gaza currently, and that none of those are, he was like, they all express loyalty. They're all pro-Hamas. You have to be. What he's saying is factually true. Your church has to be. Otherwise, they don't allow you to exist. Like he said, there are real Christians there who are not for what Hamas is doing and for the terrorism and stuff, but they're all underground. They fear for their safety. But these publicly, the ones that are allowed to worship in public, have basically the totalitarian regime there, the terrorist regime, is cool with
Joel Berry was just saying, guys, they force Christians to support Hamas in Gaza. That's all he was saying. He was just factually pointing out that, if you're a Christian in Gaza, you have to support Hamas. Okay.
with them, and they support the regime. It's the same thing. Look throughout history. This has always been the same thing when they persecute. Look in China. Look at any religious minority that they persecute. Everybody goes underground or they flee, and the few remaining who are allowed to practice in public get the stamp of approval from that totalitarian government. The same thing happened with Christian churches in Germany under Hitler's reign. So
what happens in China?
Yeah.
Hang on, we got a Rumble Rant for $1. Thank you, Org Megami. The Holy Family Church in Gaza has been accidentally attacked by the IDF 3 times, twice this year. They accidentally sniped and killed 2 women in the courtyard in 2023. Oh, so this isn't even the first time that Israel has accidentally attacked that Catholic church. In fact, it kind of seems like this isn't even the first time that Israel has accidentally murdered Catholics in Gaza. I know I am shocked at this revelation. Thank you for the Rumble Rant.
Yes.
It happens in China and
in Iran. Yes.
Yeah.
And so what he's saying is true, but they took that tweet and they
now
read all this kind of stuff into it. Now I agree, it was poorly worded and everything, and I understand how you could twist it to mean what they're saying, but when you go back and look at it, you're like, but that's not what he said. They took that tweet of him saying there's X number of publicly practicing Catholics and they're all pro-Hamas. They took that and they said, wow, look, he's saying that they all deserve to die.
That is what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean,
that is 100% what he's saying.
Wow.
Yes, that is 100% what he's saying.
Is the implication that they're saying that he is so pro-Israel and such a Zionist shill that he's going to kill Christians?
Exactly.
Yes.
That's
well done.
Special kind of evil.
Like the thrust. I'm
Joel Berry is a special kind of evil, Isaiah. Joel Berry and James Lindsay and all of you assholes are a special kind of evil.
That's lying when you don't even have to.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's lying when you don't
desperate to. Desperate to try to nail somebody.
Okay. I think that it's all very clear to us who is a special kind of evil here, and you got 4 of them on the screen right there. Hey, thank you, Nikolai. I need collectivism shirts again this Halloween. I got you. The collectivism shirt is definitely coming back. I actually personally love the collectivism shirt. I think it's one of the coolest shirts I've ever designed. For people who don't know, it's like a Nazi ghost zombie holding kind of like a weird sickle. It looks like an old school horror movie t-shirt from the 80s. And it was part of my Halloween collection last year. And I have a red one that I wear all the time. It looks so cool in red. But no, I'm definitely bringing the collectivism shirt back. We're going to be doing a big merch store update. I know I haven't done a merch store update in a minute. I actually do have a whole bunch of new merch. I just haven't pushed it. I've had other stuff going on. Okay. I've had other stuff going on. There's a big update coming to the merch store, and it's going to be awesome, and it's going to be amazing, and it's going to be everything, and it's coming. But there's other things going on. All right, so I will do that. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. That is our little James Lindsay segment. Now, listen. One more thing I want to talk about really before we start digging in. And actually, no, there's a couple more things I want to talk about. I lied. I have to talk about this. I have to talk about this. This literally happened as I was on a spy stream earlier. So, okay, I don't follow the Epstein stuff all that closely, but I follow enough to know what's going on. And so essentially what's happened is, of course, the entire Trump administration is trying to block the release of the Epstein files. Pam Bondi is a lying shill. Kash Patel is a lying shill. Dan Bongino is just going along with it because apparently he was going to quit the FBI over them not wanting to release the Epstein files. They're basically all pretending, hey guys, Epstein totally didn't kill himself and there's no client list and Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison for no reason and there's just nothing to see here. And then Trump keeps shitting on his supporters. So Trump has been tweeting all the time or posting on Truth Social, whatever, all the time that if you want me to release the Epstein files, you are no longer my supporter and you suck and you're really mean and you need to go away. And so it's mind-boggling to a really significant degree because this was the thing. This was the thing that people wanted more than anything. And now the Trump administration and everyone is involved is just going, nope, nothing to see here. Don't worry about it. So Thomas Massie because he's incorrigible, basically was trying to use Congress in order to get the Epstein files released and in order to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell to actually talk about what's going on, to, you know, give people the information they're looking for. Well, check this shit out. Check this out. Breaking news not too long ago. The Speaker of the House is adjourning the House entirely until September, just so they don't even have to discuss releasing the Epstein files. Until September. These assholes are taking a month and a half vacation specifically so they don't have to talk about the Epstein files. Listen.
No, but I, as you all know, I speak to the president multiple times a day on a typical day, often, always. And what I know about the president's heart on this is that he agrees with everything I've said here today. He wants maximum transparency, but he's also very insistent that we do not subject people who have already been victims of unspeakable crimes to further public scrutiny. And it would be a very dangerous thing to put those people's names out or to do a release of information in a way that is haphazard where they could be easily unmasked. And so you have to be very careful about how you do that. I think we have a moral responsibility to do that. We have a moral responsibility to expose the evil of Epstein and everybody who's involved in that.
Then release the files.
And we're resolved to do it. But we also have an equal moral responsibility to protect the innocent. And that is a fine needle to thread. And we could all give ourselves easy political cover and come out and do something in a haphazard fashion, but I would not be able to sleep at night because I know our legal responsibility. I understand what the legal standard is, but more than that, the moral standard. Okay. So we're going to do this and we're going to do it expeditiously. We're going to do it the right way. What is popular isn't always right. And what is right isn't always popular. I had an 8th grade teacher tell me that one time. I carried it with me my whole life. We're going to do the right thing here. And the American people at the end will see that we did that in the right way and on the right timetable. Yes, sir.
And, you know, I saw this earlier, and for people who don't know, about 3 years ago, my college boyfriend was doxxed on the internet by people who were hell-bent on trying to destroy my life. My college boyfriend, sadly, after we left college and were no longer dating, he went to prison for something he didn't do because he got roped into a situation with his childhood best friend. And I have rehashed this situation time and time again on this channel, even though they always say, Karlyn, you've never talked about this. No, I literally have talked about it over and over again, because you assholes tried to destroy my life. You tried to destroy my work. You dragged my college boyfriend from 20 years ago, who I had barely spoken to in literally years when this all happened. You dragged him into the mud. You put his family through hell. You tried to go after him after he had already gone to jail for 8.5 fucking years for something he didn't fucking do. I still hear to this day, you're a panel defender, 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 you're a panel defender. This is the stupidest fucking thing that anyone has ever said in my chat, and you're going to be permanently banned based on this alone. If he did it, he would be in prison. You think the federal government has never targeted people to put them in prison for things they didn't do? I bet you think all the January 6th people did it too. I bet you think that January 6th is the only time in the history of the federal government where people have been targeted for something they didn't do. You are no longer welcome in my chat. Go away. I still hear about this to this day. I have broken more stories about grooming in public schools than almost any independent journalist in the country over the last 5 years, and it's not even fucking close. And I, to this day, still have to hear from the right, from the supposed anti-woke right, petter defender, petter defender, petter defender, petter defender. I'm sorry. I never want to hear this shit again. I never want to hear this shit from the Zionist right again. I never want to hear this shit from the anti-woke classical liberals again. I never want to hear this shit from anyone again, because I am not one of the people advocating for the cover-up of the biggest pedophile scandal in like the history of the fucking country. The entire Republican Party is complicit in this. Trump is complicit in this. MAGA is complicit in this. Anyone that supports them is complicit in this. And I don't want to hear pedo defender ever again. You people can all go fuck yourselves, honestly. The amount of lives that these politicians have proactively tried to destroy, the amount of lives that the influencers have tried to destroy, the amount of lives that the whole right-wing political machine have tried to destroy just to maintain their grip on the fucking narrative. And this is what they actually do. If you don't see that politics is just completely fake and gay, if you don't see that all this online bullshit is just completely fake and gay, I don't know what to do, man. I don't know how I can help you. I don't know how I can show you. There's a reason I don't interact with any of these people. And it's because none of it's fucking real. I'm only interested in doing things that are actually real. I'm only interested in interacting with things that are actually going on in the real world. None of this bullshit is real. And if you still support this and you still support the Republicans and you still support Trump, I think that's really fucking retarded. And you're probably not smart enough to be here and you can go away. Like, that's honestly how I feel about it. These people tried to destroy my life over my college boyfriend going to prison for something he didn't do, and me having the gall to stand behind him and be loyal to him for 8.5 fucking years through federal prison. And then they do this, they can all go fuck themselves. That's exactly how I feel about that. So I wanted to say that and get that out of my system. And we are going to be moving into the presentation from the revolution. And thank you guys for allowing me to get, like, I had to go through so much bullshit for that. You guys don't even know. I'm not going to go into it now, but like, yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Because if I keep going, I'm going to be ranting all day, and I don't actually want to be ranting all day. I actually have some cool stuff I want to talk about. We are going to be moving over to a presentation about the Revolutionary Communists of America, guys. So if you're here for that, just sit tight for a minute. We are going to be watching the Revolutionary Communists of America. Just a few quick things I want to talk about. Number one, if you want to support the work I'm doing, actually exposing the left. Thank you, Kazmar. Thank you. I appreciate you, fucking morons. Yes, all of them. If you want to support my work actually exposing the left, head over to my Substack. That is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. A couple hours ago, we actually did a really interesting spy stream. We went inside the professional guild for like opera singers and ballet dancers, and they were all arguing about how many stories they need to queer and how people are using gender and pronouns. And it was actually pretty funny because they were talking about how do we abolish the gender binary within opera and ballet. I kid you not, I have this all on video. They were talking about how trans opera singers can't get jobs, and it's really sad and it's really unfair, and they need to educate and queer the entire opera industry. They talked about how opera was an inherently queer profession and all that stuff. And so it was actually a really kind of funny spy stream to do. You can access the recording of that for supporters over on the Substack. Oh no, we're doing this today? Oh no. Well, you guys are doing a horrible job of A-logging me because you guys have been really quiet the last day and a half. So maybe get a move on that. I was anticipating some back and forth and play, and I've gotten nothing. You can out me. It was me. It was Maria Callispan who gave me the information for the little spy stream that we did earlier, because she's actually a member of the union. This obviously is not what people know her by online, but she did send me the stuff for the union organizing call. So everyone salute Maria for her service. We appreciate that. Another thing I want to talk to you guys about. Okay. So you're going to be hearing more about this in like the coming months, but I'm launching my own nonprofit. And the reason I'm launching my own nonprofit, this originally started as a joke because we infiltrated the conference for the Center for Research on Male Supremacism. And the conference for the Center on Research for Male Supremacism is funded by the Center for Right-Wing Studies at the University of California, Berkeley. And so as I'm sitting watching 4 days worth of male supremacism presentations, and I still haven't released all the stuff we have, partially because I was actually waiting for this to be ready. As I was sitting there just for days listening to these presentations, I was like, I'm just going to launch my own Center of Left-Wing Studies. And then it started as a joke. I was like, what would I actually have to do? Like, can I actually just start a nonprofit and launch my own Center for Left-Wing Studies? And it turns out, yes, you can, actually. Yes, you can. And so within a week, I had a fiscal sponsor for this. So I actually have an organization that I'm working with that they're going to allow me to take tax deductible donations. So you can make donations that you can write off on your taxes to the Center for Left-Wing Studies now. This is at leftwingstudies.com. And it is completely separate from like Decode the Left and my Substack, because I do want to keep them separate. So basically what it's going to be is I'm going to have a for-profit arm, which is Decode the Left. Essentially, it's under something called Red Menace Media. And then separately from that, I'm going to have the Center for Left-Wing Studies, and the Center for Left-Wing Studies is the nonprofit arm. The reason I'm doing it that way is because I never want... When you run a nonprofit, you have to play by certain rules and you have to give the government certain access to your information. And I'm just not ready to do that yet with some of my work, and I don't want to give them access to it. So there is going to have to be, like, I'm still going to be maintaining, I'm not going to take a salary from this or anything. I'm going to be working based on the support you guys give me with the for-profit stuff. But what I do want to do is actually start collecting donations and start specifically going out and getting grants, because this is another thing I can do with this now. Now I can get grants. And what I want to support with the Center for Left-Wing Studies is kind of the boring stuff, but it's the boring stuff that I think is really necessary. It's the boring stuff that like I really get off on doing when I'm just like working late at night, listening to Twitter Spaces, and like it's the stuff that like I personally like doing. But I also think it's really necessary. So the thing primarily that this is going to be focused on, this is going to be a research and archival project, because I've always kind of thought that the work I do now is not actually for right now. It's for 50 years from now. It's for 100 years from now. It's for 200 years from now. If any of this survives, and who knows, it probably won't. But I've always kind of been a student of history. And, I studied history a lot in college. I went to school in Boston. Obviously, I was very into American history in college. And so I've always kind of like thought about my work as part of what I want to do is archive this moment, is archive all of this information about the left, is make all this stuff publicly available, because what I really want to do is develop a team of people, and we're all researching and putting this primary source evidence out there and trying to make sense of it. Because you guys know one of the challenges that we've had on this channel for the last, several years is that we have access to an overwhelming amount of information. And it's like we just keep going down these rabbit holes. And every time you go down a rabbit hole, you just stumble onto another pile of information. It is an absurd, overwhelming network of leftist content and bullshit all over the country. And I've kind of identified 4 projects that I want to do specifically under the Center for Left-Wing Studies to be able to research and archive all of this stuff, to create a record of this moment, not only that we can use to research now, but that I want to create a record for history to say, here is what was happening. Here is how all of this evolved. Here is the stuff that many people haven't even bothered to take a look at that tells us how the Marxist revolution is going to happen in this country, essentially. Now, of course, the ironic part is that I actually do think the left is going to win. And if the left wins, they're going to wipe all my work off the map, and it's never going to go anywhere. And it's basically going to be like the sun enveloped the earth and all that stuff. But at least I want to try to archive something, to have a record of here are all the things that happen, and taking all this information that we have and putting it in one place and trying to make sense of it. So there are 4 key projects that are going to live under the Center for Left-Wing Studies. The first is the Queer Marxism Project, which is a website that I'm kind of trying to create an online museum. And it's a little bit kind of like horror show and like, a little wacky, because I feel like that project specifically just has a little bit of personality to it, where we're going to be archiving the evolution of queer Marxism, basically from the 60s up until today, talking about all the underground subcultural stuff that we have access to, making sure all of this stuff is in one place. That is one of the things that's going to be under the Center for Left-Wing Studies. Another thing that's going to be under the Center for Left-Wing Studies is a project I'm calling Mapping the Modern Left, which is kind of... I want to document the left. I want to say, here are all the different groups on the left. Here's how they're working together. Here are the national groups. Here are the state groups. Here are all these. It's basically creating a massive fuck off archive of this information. This is going to be like the evolution of the Unwoke Wiki project that we started a couple of years ago, because we actually did start a project called the Unwoke Wiki that we were like documenting like all the different activists, all the different organizations. We have a wiki tool that we were putting all this stuff in, and we kind of gave up on it. Not because it wasn't an important project, but because it just got so overwhelming that I was just like, I have no fucking clue what to do with this. It went from 0 to overwhelming in like a couple of months. And I was like, it turned out to be so much bigger than I thought it was going to be. But now I'm returning to that project because I've been talking about it with a couple other people offline, and I might have access to other resources now that I didn't have access to a couple of years ago. And so I want to revisit the modern left project and figure that out. And I've got a lot of ideas for that. The other two components that I see being under the Center for Left Wing Studies, one is something called the gender cult, where I want to go through the entire higher education like ecosystem, and I want to by college break down what are all the gender studies programs, what are all the queer studies programs, any social justice programs. We're talking about like majors and stuff like that. But what I also want to do is look at all the different research centers within the universities, starting with the top tier universities, of course, and kind of like working our way down. But like one of the things that we found over and over and over again when we're studying all the gender and queer stuff happening in higher education is it's not just about the academic programs and the professors. There are colleges that like have all of these different centers and research arms and just different like little organizations within the college where they get funding for grants and stuff to do all this crazy leftist stuff. And so if you're just looking at the high level administration, like, okay, so if you're just looking at, let's say Yale, just to pick a college, and you're only looking at the administration and you're saying, well, the administration is supporting queer because they've got like a center for queer like support and all that stuff. Like that's one big picture view. But if you actually dig into Yale's website, you quickly find that they have at least like 3 different small little research centers just focused on pushing far left gender and queer ideology. Yale actually has a research center where they're getting funding to send professors and students at Yale into like basically to right-wing events to research the right wing, and then they report back, and they have a whole center to study the right wing at Yale. And it's like it's just this little center. It has like, you know, maybe an executive director has maybe a couple of student interns, but they're churning out all of this crazy research and all these crazy ideas. And I really think that that's where the kind of the sweet spot is in higher education, is to map all that stuff out and to be monitoring all the things that are coming out of this stuff. So like with the gender cult and also with the mapping the modern left, what I actually want to do is create a dashboard that like anyone can go in, and we're getting real-time updates from all of these organizations, like through RSS feeds or just social media feeds or stuff like that. Like I've kind of been experimenting with how to build this in Discord specifically to build a community, just having access to like this type of archival information, but also getting real-time updates about what these groups are doing across their social media, across their websites, stuff like that. So that's the other thing. And then finally, the last thing that I see as a part of the Center for Left Wing Studies for right now is something I'm calling the Zine Archive, because we, again, have a massive amount of leftist propaganda, and leftist propaganda comes in the form of zines. And what I want to do is I want to archive all of these leftist zines and leftist propaganda in one place, because what we have to do, and what we've been doing in the community for years, is there are all sorts of like zine archival websites all over the internet, but there's no kind of like master archive to find all of this stuff. And one of the things that's cool about reading the zines is that you can see the evolution of the ideology, because the zines are the first place they're talking about their ideas. If they have an idea they want to share with the world, they write a zine about it. And that tells us how the ideology has developed. It tells us what their ideas are. It tells us who they're reading, who they're listening to, stuff like that. And I want to create a massive archive where everyone has access to this information and everyone can research it and everyone can look at it. So that is my vision for the Center for Left Wing Studies. It is something that is going to be, again, you can make tax deductible donations to it. I'm pretty sure that the donation form actually works on the website right now. I'm pretty sure. unless something has broken. So you can actually go in and make a donation if you want to. I'm pretty sure. Yo, I already have donations. I didn't even know I had a donation. Thank you to whoever donated the first donation on the Center for Left-Wing Studies. That's cool, Robert. Thank you for that, Robert. I didn't even know I had a donation. That's rad. That's awesome. And so what I want to do with the donations, guys, is I don't anticipate taking a salary from this or anything, at least not right now. What I really want to do with the donations is to be able to pay people to help me build out this archive. I want to give Reagan a full-time fucking job, and I'm not even joking. If we are able to raise like enough money to have a full-time employee, Reagan is going to be the first employee of the Center for Left-Wing Studies. I'm telling you that right now. If she wants to, I can't force her to do it or anything. But like, just someone that can help archive all this information, because one of the challenging things about what we're doing is that essentially, okay, I don't want to sound like I'm asking for too much, but I don't trust anyone to actually do this that I haven't trained in the left, because you're going to have to look at a lot of information. You're going to have to break stuff down. You're going to have to understand the language in order to do this. And so I really only trust people that I have trained, and Reagan is one of the people that I've trained. And so, you know, if you ever, like, if we can ever actually get this up and running and I can get some big fuck off grant, that would be amazing. Wouldn't that be amazing for me to get it like just a giant grant, and then I can just hire everyone that comes to Socialism Saturday every week, and we can just spend all of our time making a massive archive of leftist content. I mean, maybe I'm just like a nerd about this stuff. I don't know, but I like that sort of thing. So that is what's going on with the Center for Left-Wing Studies. I'm really excited to get it up and running. I'm really excited to start collecting donations. I'm really excited to start revisiting some of these projects that I've kind of had on the back burner while I've been doing other things. So this is going to be one of the main focuses of the back half of the year, is going out, kind of pushing some of these projects, seeing what funding we can get, seeing what donations we can get, seeing if we can get grants and stuff like that. And I think we can make something really cool that will be useful for a lot of people. I also eventually, kind of like thinking down the road, I would love to do a conference, like bringing people together to talk about these ideas, or at least some sort of thing where, see, the thing is, I don't even know who to reach out to is the thing, because what I would actually like to do is find other people that are studying the left, like I'm studying the left and like we are studying the left. I don't know if those people exist, but if those people do exist, I want to kind of bring them together and talk about what we're seeing, because that's kind of been the real thing for me that's been such a struggle over the past several years, is just like, I don't have anyone to talk with about these ideas because there's no one else really doing what I'm doing that I know of. And so I would love to have some sort of conference or event or panel, or just even like a meeting of the minds to like brainstorm about this stuff, because there's so much information, and you know, there's a lot to go through, and I think I've got it pretty figured out, but again, there's still so much that, yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to talk to Stu Studio at some point, but we also have to be careful about that, because, you know, all that. No, I've never talked to him. I don't even know if he knows who I am, and honestly, I don't think he's doing what I'm doing. I don't like dislike him or anything like that, but I never talked to him. So so that's what's going on there. Do I have anything else? No, let's get started. Let's get started. We're watching the Revolutionary Communists of America. I got to set the sound up. Guys, please make sure you mount the like button for me. If you have not already, please make sure you are subscribed to the channel. If you are not yet subscribed, go to the James Lindsay and Michael O'Fallon conference next month. No, I don't think I will. One of you should go to one of you should go infiltrate their conference and record them. No, I don't think I will, Master Shake. All right, we are watching from the Revolutionary Communists of America, How to Have a Revolution in the United States. Let's get this party started. Yep, screw Marty. Yep, true.
We're asking a question with this session. The question is, what kind of party are we building? And this is based on an organizational resolution that is circulated through the ranks. It's essentially intended to be an instrument in your hands for sharpening our understanding of our mission, of what we are doing with this party that we founded a year ago with the intention of gathering the first 10,000 Bolsheviks into our ranks. And we understand that that recruitment target, that drive, the first 1,000 and the first 10,000 is really just a stepping stone for creating a mass party. What we want to do with this document and with this discussion is understand more vividly, how is this party going to grow? How do we intend to proceed from where we are today to a mass point of reference, to bringing the RCA to the status of a household name? What type of organization is it? What is the nature of a cadre organization? What is the nature of Bolshevism? Really, it's opening the door to broader questions. Understandably, a lot of people want to have a very concrete, a very practical response to this. One of the comrades in Ventura, California, submitted to the portal a little report that we published in last month's issue of The Communist. It said, how people often ask us, what does the party do? Comrades might be tempted to answer with a list of organizational points. We attend weekly meetings, study Marxism, go to protests. Instead, I tried to provide a vision of our strategy to overthrow capitalism. At our current stage, we're recruiting a layer that is already drawing advanced conclusions about the need for communism and revolution. We're building a network of Marxist cadres throughout the US, skilled revolutionary propagandists and agitators who will form the nucleus of a mass communist party. I used recent examples, BLM and the Palestine Solidarity Movement, to explain why we need a clear leadership and a program to succeed. As we get organized, revolutionary ideas will be a bigger point of reference in future mass movements, and we need Bolsheviks in every key workplace, neighborhood, campus, and union, starting with you.
Oh, yeah. By the way, after I hire Reagan for the Center of Left-Wing Studies, Mizakan is the next Center for Left-Wing Studies hires. And just so you guys know, and you know, I'm not going to let you have that title or anything. You can't have that title. We're going to have to figure out how to employ you in Canada. If anyone else wants to work for the Center of Left-Wing Studies, please put your title choices in the chat. Bot will hire at some point. Nick will hire at some point. Everyone gets a job as long as you come to Socialism Saturday and you don't give me shit and you actually are productive.
The comrade said, everyone I explained this to was ready to give their contact information, and one even asked me point blank how he could become one of the first 10,000 Bolsheviks. Said he would sign up for dues when he got home. I think this is a model response. And what we wanted to do with this document and with this session, understand more deeply what is the entire strategy, because if we can see the strategy clearly, then everything else will flow from that.
All right.
And I think the United States has a very impatient, sort of pragmatic temperament. I remember having a small group of comrades in one of our first iterations of a branch back in California, in the small town, rural Northern California that I grew up in, having a meeting about revolution. And it just so happens we were on the high school campus, the sidewalks right here. One of my cousins walks by, sees us. Oh, what are you guys doing? I'm trying to get him to go away. And I said, look, we're having a meeting. Oh, well, what's the meeting about? Well, it's about revolution. And his response kind of sums up what people think when you say that word. He said, oh, do you need guns? We said, not at this stage. Thank you. But a lot of people, and I would say the vast majority of people, the vast majority of the left, people who want to have a revolution, having that goal doesn't necessarily give you a clear understanding of how to arrive at a force that's capable of making that possible. And I think that's the nature of Bolshevism, is getting to the heart of this thing. It's always been a difficult thing for people to understand. How do you build the right kind of instrument? It's a very modern question. This question was answered for the...
I think this is particularly appropriate for average person, because I'm not going to dox average person or anything, but they, them may or may not be white.
First time in this book, What is to be Done? And I think this is the book you can read over and over and get more and more from each time.
So I just want to make sure people are clear. Hang on, look at this. So I told you the Revolutionary Communists of America are funded because of dues. Members pay 1 day's wages per month to be a part of their organization. They're funded through voluntary donations. People can actually just give them money, obviously. They're funded through events. So right now you're seeing an event with the Revolutionary Communists of America. They hold Marxist school conferences all over the country where they'll rent out a conference room for a weekend or something. A couple hundred people will come and they'll learn how to be the best Marxists they can be. They have to pay money to go to that. They also make their money through book publishing. And this is true of a lot of socialist organizations where they publish their own books and then they sell those books to the members as part of the classes they're signing up for that they're also making money in. And so they have tons of books just like this that they've written with their perspective to educate people about what the Russian Revolution was, what Leninism was, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is another way they make money. It's not all Soros. It's not USAID. It's not CCP. These guys actually hate the CCP, so they would never take CCP money anyway. They're funded because of dues. And he just said at the beginning of the presentation, they're trying to get up to 10,000 members. So that's 10,000 people who are giving them at least 1 day's wages per month. That's a lot of money.
I think this is the book you can read over and over and get more and more.
Like, let's play a game called Fun with Math for a second. What is a good day's wage? Let's just say $50. $50 a month times 10,000 people in the organization. That's $500,000 a month just based off of the dues. But they're also getting voluntary donations. They're also doing these events all over the country. They're also selling these books. They're also doing all these other things. This is not the only income they have. But I'm sorry, like if you're an organization like this, $500,000 a month, like just from one line of funding, that's a lot of fucking money. Times 12. I mean, I know this is easy, but I used to be good at math. I'm no longer good at math. $6 million a year. That's $6 million a year just in dues. That's a lot of money.
From each time that you read it. Admittedly, it's not easy to read the first time around. It assumes that the reader is swimming in certain waters. It's written for an audience of Russian revolutionaries in 1902 who understand the recent history of their movement, the debates that are raging. It's a polemic. But once you get to the heart of what's being argued, all the content is there. Everything that you need in order to understand what it's going to take for us to build this kind of party, to build modern day 21st century Bolshevism, is contained in Lenin's argument. And what was happening at that time was that the revolutionary movement was boiling up. It was raging. The number of people that wanted to overthrow the Tsar were it was a human tidal wave, and they were rushing into the revolutionary movement. In fact, the Tsarist prisons were overflowing with revolutionaries, and Tsarist prison cells were a sense of a Cadre school. It was a university. You get locked up for 5 years, and there's not much you can do except read and write and think. And a lot of cadres got their education, not in a very pleasant setting, but in a pretty effective one, after all. Lenin was one of these. He was arrested in 1895, 1 year after moving to St. Petersburg, and spent the next 5 years in Tsarist prisons and in exile camps. And I think you can imagine that he was basically cooking this up. What is to be done was a product.
Wait. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. You're lying. No, he didn't. You better not get me excited like this music can and be lying to me. You better not. You better not. Bro. Ladies and gentlemen, you're conservative influencers. You're conservative influencers. Okay, back to this. No more fun. No more fun allowed ever again. No more fun. Oy vey. Yeah, oy vey. Oy vey. Real.
Product of that long period of thinking about what the movement needed. But every time the Tsarist police would come and carry out raids and sweep away one layer of leadership, another wave would pour forward, and it would just keep growing. The problem is there was a very low political level in general. You had a network of discussion groups, but you didn't have any kind of professionalism. There was no central force to coordinate it. And so Lenin could understand that you needed to bring this thing together. You needed to concentrate it and give it professionalism. He was fighting against primitive methods, against amateurism. And he understood something that nobody else really did, at least at a degree that...
No, the woke right is not a real thing. James Lindsay just made it up, and then he believed in it so strongly that he convinced a lot of other people. It's such bullshit. The woke right just means people who don't support Israel and who aren't classical liberals. That's it.
No one else really did, is that if you want to give it that hardened core and professionalize a force like that, that's not an organizational, administrative, technical task. That is a political task. It's an ideological task. And what that means is the step you need to take is the step of training cadres deeply and thoroughly in revolutionary theory. Now, we can put the important information, put the bottom line up front. That's what we need to do today. That is the one key to our strategy from which everything else flows, to raise our political level, to train cadres, to train hundreds and then thousands of cadres. That is the only way for us to get to 10,000, but not just to grow in numbers, but to grow in quality, to become the kind of force that can actually wield influence and be a factor in the situation. Understandably, a lot of impatient young leftists don't like this answer. And they didn't like it at the time Lenin put it forward either. They called him, well, they didn't use the word theory, bro, but, and they didn't say theory is elitist as such. Actually, they probably did make that argument. But they said that he was overrating ideology, that he was obsessed with literary, intellectual work, that it would be better if revolutionaries focused on concrete issues, practical material demands, make it realistic. They had a high regard for spontaneity. They said, this is what's happening spontaneously. The workers are moving. We should just be supporting them. Essentially, they were arguing to tail end the movement of the working class. And Lenin fought against this severely throughout what is to be done. The first chapter is all dedicated to this. You need to sharpen, and you need a high level before you can unite. He said, in order for us to unite, we need firm lines of demarcation. You need to recruit people around a theory and around a program. That is the thing that you're recruiting people to. And if you do that from the act of uniting people around a single worldview, and I think we're making progress in this room. I think we have a single worldview represented in these ranks and in the RCA today. We've come.
So I just want to make this point because at the center, so you guys know, for people who've been around, we get people that are new on the channel all the time that come into the chat and they go, Karlyn, what do we do? What do we do? How do we beat the left? What do we do? Tell us what to do. And the answer that I always give them is never an answer they want to hear, which is, you need to learn as much as you can about the left before you try to do anything. You need to unlearn every conservative bullshit narrative that you've ever been told because they're just not true. You need to hinge back into reality with what the left actually believes, what they're actually saying, what they're actually doing. You need to become fluent in their language. You need to learn as much as you can about them. That's the purpose of why we watch so much socialism on this channel, is to teach people as much as we can about what the left is doing across a wide variety of organizations, across a wide variety of activists. We do not just cover one leftist group. We cover all leftist groups. We don't just talk about Antifa. We talk about the DSA and all those other organizations as well. We want to create a general kind of knowledge base of, here is the map of the left. That's why I want to do Mapping the Modern Left as part of the Center for Left-Wing Studies, because we need a way to show people, here is the monster that we're dealing with, and here is actually what they believe, and here's what they're doing, and here's how they organize. Here are the difference between these groups. Here's where the funding comes from. All this stuff. Before you start doing anything, you need to learn as much as you can. Now, conservatives never want to hear this because they say, can't you just make a 5-minute or 10-minute video telling me everything I need to know? And no, I can't. I can make an 1.5-hour video that will give you a basic introduction to some of the language that you'll encounter on the left, and that's about as good as I can do. I have watched over 5,000 hours of socialist content in the past several years. I do this almost every single day. There is no way to break down the amount of content that I've consumed into a succinct 10-minute video because you're lazy and you don't want to take the time to learn. The reason I bring this up is I didn't just arbitrarily pick this strategy based on, well, I have a YouTube channel, and if I tell people to learn about the left, then, I have an audience that people want to learn about the left. That's not how this happened. The reason I picked learning and education as the thing I was going to focus on is because I was looking at what the left was doing, and I was saying, how did they get so powerful? How did they get so effective? How did they get so organized? How are they doing this? How are they taking over all these organizations? How are they achieving all of this? They're literally pushing a revolution in this country. The way that they're doing it is through education. The way they're doing it is they're building out all these different organizations. And it's not just the Revolutionary Communists of America. There are so many different leftist groups that do this, where they put education at the center of their activism, education at the center of their organizing. This is why it's so fuck off retarded for conservatives to run around going, they're stupid, they're deranged, they're mentally ill. Most of what the left does is they're teaching each other, and they're learning from each other, and they're learning the history, and they're learning how the Russian Revolution happened. And they're trying to say, how can we copy and paste that to today? But they're learning every single aspect of it. They're reading the philosophy. They're having these discussion groups. They're paying attention to what's going on. They're writing this stuff. They're distributing this stuff. They're having reading groups about the stuff they're writing and distributing. This is why we have so much content to watch on this channel, because education is at the forefront of what the left does as part of its activism. It's how they engage everyone, is how they stay focused, and it's how they're constantly making progress. So when I say that if you want to defeat the left, you've got to shut your fucking mouth and listen to what they're saying and learn as much as you can, it's not that I'm trying to be mean. It's that we need to do what they're doing on our side. And if we are unwilling to do that, then there's no way that we can ever beat them. So, I could give you some tasks to say, hey, why didn't you go run for school board? Guess what? You can go run for school board, and maybe you would even win. But if you don't understand the language of the left, if you don't understand how to deal with the left on the school board, if you don't even understand when a leftist is talking to you because you haven't bothered to learn the language, what is that school board seat really going to accomplish? I can point to multiple Moms for Liberty candidates that were endorsed by National Moms for Liberty that got elected to school board in their districts, and then they ended up voting leftist shit into schools. I can specifically point to school board candidates in North Carolina because I have a lot of supporters in North Carolina, so I just know about what's going on there. I can specifically point to multiple Moms for Liberty endorsed candidates in North Carolina that won seats on their school board and then voted gender ideology into the school with those school board seats. So this is why I don't give conservatives things to do before they've learned what they're talking about, because inevitably, if you just go try to run for school board, but you don't know the enemy you're fighting, you're going to end up on their side. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. So we do education at the forefront of what we're doing and at the forefront of the effort that I'm trying to build, because that is what the left does. The left takes this seriously. Sadly, people on our side do not. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in.
A long way. If you do this, certain things will flow organizationally from that.
Yeah.
If you have people that think like Marxists and they have the same method when they're analyzing events, if they have a shared understanding of the mission they're trying to fulfill in history, then it creates a certain mentality, and you get iron discipline. That's a voluntary revolutionary discipline based on commitment. And that's the way that you fight amateurism. These methods that you had, basically a lack of coordination, a lack of agreement, people rowing in different directions. If you want a force that's powerful and yet flexible and agile, something that's steadfast, that's not going to break apart when it gets tested under strain of events, then you need people, you need to build it out of a special material. And that's people that understand history, how history unfolds, the laws of history, and their role in that process. And that's exactly what the Bolsheviks achieved. In a sense, what is to be done is like the mission statement. In Russian, что делать? It's like,
что
what
делать?
to do. It's like, here's what you do. That's what he was laying out. 15 years later, they completed the mission. 15 years later, separated 1902 from 1917. And in 1913, a few years before that victory, this is how a Tsarist police reported the impact of the Bolshevik cadres. He said, the faction of Leninists is always better organized than the others. This is an internal report, obviously. Stronger in its singleness of purpose. They're more resourceful in spreading its ideas. Its circles are scattered throughout all the cities. They're the most energetic. They seem capable of tireless struggle. They're constantly organizing. That's because they had a shared ideology. It's the political clarity that created that kind of.
Yeah, so I'm working on the re-education book right now. I've been working on it behind the scenes again. I took a break from it for a while, and having a workbook as part of that is not it's not out of my frame of reference. So yeah, having a workbook is on the perpetual list of 87 things I have to do, but I have to finish re-education first. So that is the number one priority on the book front right now.
Effective organization. He also explained that the role of the party is not to tail end the working class movement, but to raise its sights, to raise its horizons, to show the way forward. We're not here just to support from the back ranks. We're here to try to explain with clarity, here's the way forward, this is the way, and try to win leadership on that basis. So how do you achieve this result is the question. I think many revolutionaries would probably like to have a well-disciplined, solid organization. But again, there wasn't clarity as to how to arrive to this thing. A few weeks ago, I went to a branch meeting in Brooklyn, and we had a really good discussion about this document. Comrade Laura was there and made a good analogy, said that capitalism is like a massive wall that needs to be battered down. And you think about the mentality of most people who are anti-capitalist, they want to batter down the wall, and they hate capitalism, and they see with an urgency, you know, the world is burning, all these people are suffering, we need to batter this down. But they don't really think what it's going to take, so they go straight to the wall with their bare fists, and they just start hammering, and they eventually get burnt out. And the Bolsheviks are those in the crowd that are like, let's take a step back, folks. This isn't working. We need to have an instrument that's suitable for battering down a massive wall like this. And that means we need to step back from the wall and start building it. And here's a construction site over here. It's going to take a long time. It's not going to be easy, but this is the only thing, a massive battering ram that the entire working class can hold on to. And then we're going to be able to batter it. So let's go. And then you try to recruit people to this effort. And some people still don't get what you're doing. And they're like, okay, well, you're saying we should abandon the wall. We can't do that. This is urgent. People are suffering. People have immediate needs right now. You want to go have this abstract construction project over here. We don't understand what you're doing. This is basically the debate that Lenin was having with the revolutionary movement in what is to be done. And so the short version is, yeah, he also said, what is the practical step that we can take? A press. You need media. You need a way to package ideas and organize people around that, so you can get on the same page that way. If you have a place where you're producing a stream of analysis, producing theory, producing reports, and it's not just written media. In our time, we have podcasts as well. We have YouTube. We have Against the Stream. We have, how many watch Against the Stream every week? Look at those hands, Fred. Let the International Center know that. Well, maybe that has something to do with the political unanimity we have in the party. It's nourished by weekly input. This is what Lenin was talking about. You need a way of getting people on the same page. That's what he was trying to build with Iskra. People said, oh, you're dogmatic and you're too literary. And people say the same thing. Oh, the Trots, they have papers. They write articles.
What's that, Master Shake?
Well, they didn't understand it then. They don't understand it today. And we can leave those critics to their method.
By the way, guys, so, okay, I'm just looking at what you just sent me.
Our methods are working pretty well so far, I'd say.
You be quiet. You be quiet. Hang on. What did you just send me? 6 hours? Why did you just send me a 6-hour socialism video? Do you want to kill me? What is to be done? Okay, it's Lenin. Okay, it's Lenin. Okay, thank you. I was like, are you telling me to watch a 6.5-hour video on socialism? Did I not drive myself insane enough for you with the socialism conference already? You really want to make me do that again? I still haven't fully recovered from the socialism conference. I just about had a heart attack. Anyway, so what was I going to say about this? I think another reason I like watching the Revolutionary Communists of America is because, like, they give us their tactics. They say, here's exactly what we're doing. We need to do the things that they're doing because these people are being monumentally successful. These people are going to hit 10,000 members this year. That's a lot of fucking people. That's a lot of fucking money. Why can't I have 10,000 people supporting my work with 1 day's wages per month? That's really what I should be charging. Instead of $8 a month, I should be charging everyone 1 day's wages for you guys to support my work and for you guys to support my nonprofit.
We can look at the question of what is a cadre organization in general. And we've often done this in the form of analogies. There are multiple analogies. It's not just the military analogy. The comrades at the center know that I've been doing a bit of a rabbit hole into military structures, and I'll get into that. But
military
it's not the only one.
structures?
Anytime you have to have.
Why do you think that the communists are researching military structures? Any guesses? Anyone want to guess why the communists are doing research into military structures? Any guess? Pop quiz for the chat. I'm looking for your answers. Why are communists doing research into military structures? Why would that possibly be happening? Why do you think that that would benefit them to spend time researching into military structures as they're trying to prepare a revolution? To fight the government? Yep, they're going to do that. They're preparing to overthrow the government? Yep. How are they preparing to overthrow the government? Why do they need to know military structures? How are they using the military structure information to overthrow the guys? Come on. I know you guys know the answer to this. Come on. Please don't let me down. What are they trying to do with the information about military structures? Organizational operation, the way to direct the recruits of a draft. Well, that may be. Thank you. They want to use military personnel to overthrow the government because that's what happened in the Russian Revolution. In the Russian Revolution, they turned the military on the government. These people are students of the Russian Revolution. They're studying military structures because they're trying to infiltrate the military to turn the military against the government.
Have large numbers of people mobilized suddenly to achieve something, you need cadres. Anytime you need large numbers of people to come and respond to an emergency and get something done, and they need to be directed by a force that's already thought through, how do you direct what needs to, what is it that we actually need to achieve and how do we go about it? You need cadres to be the leadership of that massive operation. Think of any kind of emergency. You have a natural disaster, an earthquake, a flood, things need to be done. You need people mobilized. You have an epidemic breaks out, a pandemic. The CDC has its cadres. They actually have a pretty thorough explanation for their personal thing, how to roll out a cadre. And a cadre, by the way, it means framework. It's French. A cadre is an individual part of this structure, or it could refer to the structure as a whole. So don't get confused. Sometimes you can talk about a medical cadre, and that's talking about the members of this unit. But what is a cadre? It's a special organization, and it's small and it's tight-knit, and it has the ability to become massive. That's a pretty cool feature. And the ability to become massive very rapidly comes from certain qualities that the small group has. It's the level of expertise, the level of training, the level of professionalism and discipline. It takes a long time to basically make in concentrate the ingredients that you need on a massive scale. The concentrated version needs the ability also not just to be professional, disciplined, well-trained and educated.
You know what I really want to do?
The ability to impart.
Hang on. We'll get back to you in a second, bro. You know what I really want to do? You know what I'm thinking about in my head right now? So I'm going back to this idea of like mapping the modern left, and an idea that I've been thinking about is wouldn't it be cool to have like a giant map of the United States and just have on that map all of the different far leftist groups all over the United States by location, not just like the different political groups, but all the different far left organizations, all the far left nonprofits, all the far left centers and like research arms and things like that, where all the conferences are. Like I mean, can you just imagine how insane this map would be? I think it would actually be like a really shocking visual for people to see, like, here is the actual network of all the decentralized cells of the far left all over the country. I think, because we get this question all the time, like, well, how big is this? How many people are there? I mean, there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. I don't even know. It's such a huge fucking project. But I think that would be like one of the most striking things that we could create, just to show people we're not talking about onesies and twosies. We're not talking about little tiny groups. We're talking about a massive network of revolutionary cells. We got to do the revolutionary bookstores as a part of it. I just found a couple weeks ago, I found I found this website that basically is a giant database of all anarchist businesses and stuff like that. All the mutual aid networks, like there's this is the problem. It's like once you start listing out, here are all the different organizations that we need to track, it becomes overwhelming. Not really. Not in the way that you're thinking it could be. Of course, ChatGPT can be helpful, but ChatGPT makes a lot of mistakes. ChatGPT is incomprehensive. ChatGPT has a lot of limitations. So while it can help us, it's not like this is going to require like a lot of human power to actually be able to do this. And what I would like to do in theory, and I'm just brainstorming this out loud, what if I could create a way where people who I select, not just anyone, because again, I don't want to give access to this to just anyone because stupid people will come in and try to screw it up. But like, what if I could just create a way like that we could have anyone who has permission or approval to submit, like, here's the revolutionary bookstore in my city, here's this, here's that, and it kind of like automatically gets added to the map, so there can be multiple people that are submitting to it, or like, I mean, an unlimited number of people, as long as those people are known and trusted to do a good job and stuff like that. We might actually be able to build that out relatively well, not quickly, but you know, we'd have to think that through and how that would work, but I think that would be really cool.
Information out into a larger structure. Why framework? Because it's the outline of a much larger organization that can then be filled out. So you could think of it like a skeleton. You know, you need a structure that's sturdy, that's not going to break, that can uphold other tissues and organs. You know, a framework can be built out. You can think of it also as a foundation. There's a lot of different analogies. You need something solid, and then you can have a mass that rests upon this. So in the case of, like, say, a wildfire, in 2020, among all the other apocalyptic events, the western half of the US was on fire, if you remember. And they mobilized 85,000 personnel, not just fire departments from all over, but all kinds of agencies. The National Guard was out there. You had all kinds of law enforcement, medical.
Who's going to fact check all that? That's why only people I know and trust are allowed to submit to it. What did I say? See, this is why listening's got to be your number one skill that you learn here. What did I say? Only people who I allow to. So if I'm allowing the people, I'm going to assume that they're good people because I've trained them to be good people because I know them because they've been around for a while. And so I'm going to trust the things that they're submitting.
Responder units. And think about 85,000 people is a pretty good sized army. They need to be fed and they need somewhere to sleep sooner or later. And they need a lot of supplies and they need fuel and trucks. And you need to have like decision making to purchase things. And you need and the supply line has to be established very quickly. So when something like this happens, you have what's called an incident command system.
Maybe, sorry, I swear to God, I'm going to listen to this in a second, but like maybe we can use the AI to help us build this, because can't we use AI to help us program things now? Like, doesn't Canva have a thing where we can make our own app in Canva? I think ChatGPT, you can do this too. So maybe one of the most useful things we could do with the AI is like, AI, help us brainstorm this idea and help us figure out a way to create this project. And maybe you could even write this program for us. Could you actually just write this and create this for us so we can just like plunk it on a website? That would be pretty great.
And you have a general staff that's established. And the leadership of every unit, you have a department for organization, for planning, for logistics, for finance, is going to be someone that has been thoroughly prepared for this emergency, that has thought through all the contingencies, and that knows this is the resources we have. Here's the plan. If this happens, we're going to do this. And they start rolling out a response, and they're going to recruit members of different agencies. And each one, it's a very thorough division of labor. They figured out decades ago that if you don't have this figured out, you can't really do it in the midst of an emergency. It leads to chaos. You don't know who's responsible for making decisions, who's in charge, and who's going to report back, and how is it going to get done. It all needs to be figured out. So you have cadres in place, and they're going to lead the response. Any incident like this typically is a question of mobilizing. You deal with the issue, and then you demobilize back to the cadre. You don't need a standing army to respond to the next wildfire. In a sense, we're trying to mobilize and not demobilize. We're trying to build our forces and not lose forces. But in the history of the revolutionary movement, sometimes you have naturally a massive filling out of the ranks of a revolutionary party. And then after a revolutionary defeat, look, 1905, the Bolsheviks, there was more than one Russian Revolution, right? It was 3. The first one was in 1905. The Bolsheviks were not much larger than our forces today. in the course of that revolution, together with the Mensheviks, they all came together. Huge events, right? Now the workers are looking for a revolutionary. They're pouring into the ranks of the Bolsheviks. They grow to 150,000. I mean, that's a massive expansion. After the revolution's defeated, I mean, now demoralization sets in.
It would not surprise me. It would not surprise me if there were more than 150,000 socialist and communist revolutionaries in the country right now. That would not surprise me at all in any way. And the saving grace that we have is that not every socialist and communist is working within the same group. So even though I have no problem believing that there would be like at least 150,000 revolutionary socialists and communists in the country right now, some of them are with the RCA, some of them are with the PSL, some of them are academics, some of them are with the DSA, some of them are, they're with the Tempest Collective, some of them are the Firebrand Collective, some of them are with a separate communist group. Like they're all dispersed, and so they're not all kind of communicating with each other all the time. But it's kind of like, if you think about it, they already have the numbers. The left already has the numbers for their revolution. I promise you. The thing that is preventing the left from moving forward with their revolution right now is, one, they're probably not aware that they have the numbers, because these groups by and large are not like actively sharing information with each other all the time. So it's like they're looking within their own ecosystem and within their own subculture. They're not necessarily keeping up with what all the other groups are doing. Number two, they have to convince themselves that they're losing perpetually. So it's like, it's part of their narrative that they're losing, that's part of like what the struggle is. And I really think that without those two things, they would already be trying to overthrow the government. If they actually realized, yeah, we actually do have the numbers, and if we just all start working together and talking with each other, then we can absolutely have a revolution in this country. And I don't even think it would be that difficult for them to do it, because they're highly motivated, they're highly focused, they're highly organized. They're all on the same page about what the end goal is. They may have different thoughts about how to get there, but I mean, it is actually kind of terrifying when you think about it like that.
Who joined but wasn't part of the general staff, wasn't professionalized, hadn't studied Marxism, didn't really have a long view of history, is now also demoralized, and the thing disperses. They basically reduce back down to a tiny core. That was a very difficult period. But that's, you see, there's a cadre, there's a basic organizational feature that's happening beneath the surface. Well, this is what happens when you're responding to a wildfire. This is how armies are raised as well. And I do think that the military analogy is worth examining in detail. It's not just a metaphor. It is a cadre organization, and it's probably the most thoroughly worked out. I mean, they've had centuries to figure out how do you structure things in order to convince large numbers of people who have no military experience to rapidly get trained, become part of a unit, follow orders, and risk their lives. I mean, that's kind of a logistical issue, and it's not easy to do. And what you have are officers, and you have enlisted personnel who can make this happen. That's the cadres of a military. And the whole military, if you look at it as a big, vast, you could look at an army and just say, that's, okay, what's an army? That's a huge number of soldiers, and they're all wearing a uniform, and they have an arm, and they're ready to go into combat. Well, on the surface, that's what it is. In reality, it has a structure, and the structure is that's going to be permeated by sergeants. Sergeants are an enlisted soldier who's been promoted to the rank of a non-commissioned officer, and every unit is going to have sergeants, and they're going to have other ranks as well. And this is the way that troops are trained, assigned to a unit, mobilized, and then sent into battle. Look at the Civil War, for instance, to see how we also have this expansion of the troops, right? The beginning of the Civil War, you have the North. They have 15,000 enlisted soldiers, and that was in the standing army, and around 1,000 commissioned officers. They grew in the course of the war. If you count up all those who enlisted into the Northern Army, from 15,000, right? They grew to 140-fold growth to 2.1 million on the basis of those initially 1,000 officers, and then other people had to be trained rapidly to become officers. The whole thing, time is of the essence, right? When you're faced with a war. The Confederates did something similar. They had just 750 officers, and initially mustered 15,000 troops and continued to build from there. Over the course of the war, that side grew 80-fold 1.1 million ended up joining on the Southern. In total, you had 3 million soldiers enlist on both sides. And that's again, it comes down to the core of officers who's prepared to take recruits and organize them and then let them and tell them what to do. I mean, imagine being in that position. You have to know the drill, right? And so just to run through this a little bit, at the risk of bringing you all into the rabbit hole with me, we will come out on the other end, and I think it will be helpful.
Well,
but stay with me here.
Hang on, I want to comment on this. It's so funny how feds are trying to entrap lonely guys online for being far right while they let demons like this call for revolution in America. Listen, I was thinking about this in regards to like the whole Pine Sap thing. So I don't know Pine Sap. I've never talked to Pine Sap. Pine Sap is a groiper. And Pine Sap was on Jubilee. And on Jubilee, Pine Sap said he was a fascist. And I gotta be honest, like I've heard a lot about Pine Sap, and from everything that I've ever heard about Pine Sap, he actually does just seem like a really nice guy. He seems like he's very Catholic. He's very into being Catholic. He seems to actually just be like a really nice guy. I think he looks adorable in all those clips going around. Honestly, like people are making fun of how he looks. I think he looks adorable. And oh shoot, hang on, just turn on something on my browser. And so after Pine Sap went on Jubilee and said he was a fascist, which by the way, he's allowed to have an opinion. He lost his job, of course. And then they started a fundraiser for him, and they've already raised like over $30,000 for him, which is awesome. So he's going to be just fine. But like I was thinking about this, and I'm not trying to like defend the groipers, because obviously the groipers and I have broken up, but no one ever calls for communists to lose their jobs. The communists are organizing in the unions. The communists are organizing within the organizations. The communists are organizing within the universities. Literally, if someone comes out and says, I am a communist, no one calls for them to lose their jobs. No one's firing them for saying they're a communist. How is saying I'm a communist, which means I want to violently overthrow the United States government, different from saying you're a fascist? Like functionally, obviously communism and fascism are not the same thing. One believes in private property ownership and one absolutely does not. So I'm not saying they're the same ideology, but just functionally on the extremist spectrum, why aren't we calling for communists to be fired? Why aren't we calling for socialists to be fired? Why aren't we pushing those ideas? The right now, like the conservative right, the MAGA right, the fucking classical liberal retard midwits, are going after a young Catholic kid who went on a fucking show on YouTube and said, I am a fascist, to score political points, and also he was obviously having fun. And it's like, you might not agree with his politics, you might not agree with his religion, but did he really deserve to lose his job for that when communists say that they're communists out in the open all the time and no one gives a fuck? Maybe the right shouldn't be attacking people on the right. Maybe they should be looking more to the left. Maybe they should be directing it there. But no, that would just be the right actually being productive, and they're just never inclined to do that.
The smallest unit of the U.S. Army or the Marine Corps is called a team or a fire team. There's 3 to 4 soldiers, and it's going to have a leader. Even at that small scale, I think this is like the size of one of our smallest cells, right? At that small scale, the leader of a team will typically be a sergeant. In the Marine Corps, it'd be like a lance corporal. We're talking about someone with 2 to 4 years of experience. Oftentimes, in the last couple of years, we were forming a cell of 3 or 4 comrades, putting in charge of that somebody who was recruited 2 or 3 months ago. And, the military doesn't do that. we weren't sending them into combat. We were sending them into campuses and workplaces. But you put a few of these teams together, everything works in 3s or 4s. You take one unit, put them together, then you got the next unit. That's a squad. 8 to 12 people is a squad. That's going to have in its leadership a staff sergeant. So this is someone that's got like 6 years of experience. Think a large branch, 10 or 12 comrades. Do you have someone that joined in 2019 leading that? Probably not in most cases. Again, put a few squads together. Now you have a platoon, 30 to 50 people.
Do you hear the right ever talking about forming a military-like organization, even though they're the ones that are all into guns and militias and stuff like that? Do you ever hear the right talking about stuff like this?
This is going to have a commissioned officer who's been to some kind of a military academy at minimum, a lieutenant who's been to West Point or reserve officer training or some kind of thing like this, 4 to 6 years of education to lead that group. And that's like a district. That's our Brooklyn district. There's a certain level, and each of these units has one cadre in charge of overseeing the unit who's answering to someone above them and who has basically 3 or 4 people below them giving mentorship to, giving guidance to, but also giving orders. Now, obviously, there's a difference, comrades. I'm not saying we're not building a paramilitary organization. It's different. We're not building a chain of command either. It's seniority and years of service. It's not the same for political leadership because we're not training a network.
You know what? No, I don't want to fucking hear it. I don't want to fucking hear the excuses. The feds will infiltrate any far right groups. I don't want to hear the fucking excuses. The most attacks people on the far right get are from people on the right. I'm sorry. This is just provably true. There is no one that does a better job of attacking right-wing groups than people on the fucking right.
Hand down orders and people to be obedient to that. But that's not the way it works. We're trying to build a network that hands down like political clarity and inspiration. And you are trying to build.
You guys, do you guys really think that the communists don't think the feds have infiltrated them too? Do you guys really think the communists never talk about the feds infiltrating them? They talk about it all the fucking time. Surveillance is one of their primary issues. If you go on Antifa's website, the Crime Think website, they've got all sorts of things railing against surveillance. They think the feds are surveilling them too. So the right can cry all they want to say, oh, we can't do it because the feds are going to come after us. The feds are going after them too. And they know it. And they talk about it. And they strategize for how to get around it.
For relationships of training cadres that can help someone understand Marxism better, build their confidence, their clarity, and their ability to explain these ideas to others. Because after all, we're not going, the combat that we're going into, the class war, a cadre of a class war, think about it. The military is sending people to spread destruction and misery and to spread artillery. We're trying to spread ideas and to spread the influence of a revolutionary program. And so for that, you need cadres every bit as much as a military does, but it's a different type of cadres and it's a different type of structure. So I thought many of these things were quite interesting. They want it to be a very rock solid structure. Sometimes it becomes not so solid, by the way. Sometimes the thread connecting soldiers to officers becomes quite tenuous, and we can talk about that. But you have a cadre density throughout the army. That's the thing that needs to be understood, is that 15 to 20% of the troops at a large scale are going to be officers or non-commissioned officers. If the RCA was a military unit, it would be a battalion, and it would probably have 150 to 200 officers and sergeants who have an average of 6 years of experience, more at higher levels, less at lower levels. And so this is basically, if you look at the structure we're trying to build, something that's solid, something that holds together, but we're not just trying to sustain a group of 10,000. See, when we get to 10,000, that's
Do we know how you know do you know how we know that you're not as smart as you think you are? The left LARPs. Hey, Reworked, answer a question for me. What is the left's definition of capitalism? This is only for you. This is only for Reworked. No one else answer this. The left are a bunch of stupid LARPers. What is the left's definition of capitalism? Go. Let's see how much you know about the left. What is the left's definition of capitalism? You want to come into my chat and educate us on what the left is and what the left believes and what the left are doing? They're just a bunch of insane LARPers. What does private property mean? What does private property mean? What does private property mean? What does that mean? What does it mean? We're waiting. What does private property mean? We're waiting. Do 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 include. No. It's not flexible. It's not flexible. See, and there it is. Has no fucking clue. No, it's actually not flexible at all. When they say private property ownership, they mean bourgeois property. That means property that you can use to create personal privatized wealth that is exclusive to you and your family, that is not available to the general public. That is what creates oppression. That is what creates hierarchy. When some people have more resources than others, they mean explicitly your ability to own a home, your ability to own land, your ability to own an apartment that you rent out as a landlord, your ability to own intellectual property, your ability to own a business, whether that business is big or small, and your parental rights over your children are considered to be a form of private property ownership because it allows the passing of generational wealth from parent to child. So no, it's not a flexible definition. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Now you can go to the back of the class and take a seat and shut the fuck up. And if you have a question about what is being shown on the screen, you are allowed to ask a question, but you've just proven to us that you don't know basic 101 level information about the left. No. You are not here to teach us. I have watched over thousands of hours of this bullshit, 5,000 fucking hours in the last 5 years at least. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You think I'm conflating personal property with private property? You are a grade A fucking retard. Can everyone in the chat please shame him? He doesn't know that bourgeois property isn't personal property. No, asshole. Personal property are things like your car or your pets or your computer or your phone or your books or your toothbrush. That is what personal property is. Property that cannot be used to create privatized individual bourgeois wealth. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Now get to the back of my class. Shut the fuck up. You're in a timeout now, which means you aren't allowed to speak for 5 minutes. When you get out of your timeout, the only thing you are allowed to say in my chat from now on until I decide otherwise is to ask questions about what is being seen on the screen, and then we will educate you about what's going on because you obviously don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Renan, thank you. I guess since the Marxists are a bunch of LARPers, we should ignore them and let them take over and stop minimalizing them. Yeah, it's kind of like the intruder in the chat that's like, that's not what private property means. This is just LARPing. It's all fake. Yeah, go listen to that guy and you'll be about as smart about the left as your average conservative midwit.
When we all give high fives and then our work is done.
Yeah,
we're trying to build something that can, our work really will begin when we have these kinds of numbers. The session we just talked about is deploying cadres into high-stakes situations to be able to make decisions and to counter this vicious enemy that we've been talking about, the capitalist class, the most vicious that history has ever seen. And so we need serious leadership for that. I think it's also, there's a number of things. How much do I want to keep talking about the military before? Well, one other thing here is that I found this document. There's a lot of things on the internet, and one of them is raising an army, 10 rules. And it's not a joke. This guy is a mercenary private contractor who works like for the U.S. imperialists. When they go in and destroy a country, then you know that the imperialists have to rebuild an army. They often do a bad job of it. But this guy was critical of the Pentagon's system, and he's got 10 rules. He says the first one was to drop the Pentagon's train and equip mentality. Let me just read you this. Raising armies is more sophisticated than this. It involves growing leaders, building institutions, instilling professionalism. Training and equipping alone only gives you better dressed soldiers who can shoot straighter. It goes on. Number two is, secondly, you have to understand this is a deeply political activity. Technical approaches that ignore the politics will fail. Here's another. I'm not going to go all 10. But another one, you have to instill a professional military ethos. That's another way for saying you need political education. You need ideological training. Starting in basic training, imbue respect for the rule of law and allegiance to the Constitution. This was, again, someone who built an army in Liberia in 2014 or early 2000s. It says Liberian recruits spent as much time in the classroom as they did on the rifle range. So when you're building, he says, if you don't do this, you're going to have an army of privates, basically soldiers with no experience and no qualifications to lead and to command and to hold things together. And of course, an army like that just falls apart. He said, selecting for leadership is difficult. It takes 20 years to make a colonel in the US Army. A colonel, I think, would oversee like a brigade of 5,000 or something like that. And yet the countries can't wait that long. They call this line of business, they don't just call it army building. They say...
No. No, you're another person who needs to stop talking and you need to start listening. You've got a lot of conservative bullshit talking points in your head that are not real. These people do care about other people. They believe that their way is fundamentally better and will be fundamentally better for everyone. Now, of course, they're wrong about that, but that doesn't mean they don't care about other people. We don't make shit up here. These are not religious zealots. That's not what's going on. It is a subculture that you are not familiar with, and so you're trying to explain it in some way, but that way isn't helpful. So again, less talking, more listening, please. It's okay to be new here, guys. For new people in the chat, like, we want you to listen, we want you to learn, but what you have to understand when you're new here is that you don't know as much as you think you know. You've probably been lied to by a lot of influencers. You probably have a lot of bullshit talking points in your head. If you've ever listened to the right talk about these people, you have to listen to what they're actually saying. And if you don't understand something or you have a question, it's totally fine to ask. We answer questions all the time, but like, coming in and pontificating, yeah, like, everyone that's in the chat, we know how to spot you. And it's not impressive to us. Like, it's impressive when people come and they want to learn. It's impressive when people come and they ask questions and they're receptive to information. It's not impressive when people spout conservative bullshit talking points in our chat, because we watch this stuff all the time and we know what's real and we know what's nonsense, okay? So, not trying to make anyone feel bad, but...
Security sector reform. And even that is a little strong, so they call it SSR. And so the last rule is, lastly, be humble. SSR is a marathon, not a sprint. Whether one is raising an army of 2,000 or 200,000, the methods are essentially the same, differing only in scale and scope. So I think we can take some of these methods. Some of them don't really
It's going to be a shawl
apply.
of some sort. I'm not exactly sure yet.
The firefighters are also organized in a paramilitary organization. I thought this was interesting. I mean, there's patterns to this, right? Every New York City has 5 borough commands. Each has a borough commander. There's 9 divisions throughout. Each division has 4 to 7 battalions led by a battalion chief. Each battalion consists of 3 to 8 firehouses. That's around 200 firefighters. Each firehouse consists of 1 to 3 fire companies, each led by a captain who commands 3 lieutenants and 12 to 20 firefighters. In short, you can see when you need to mobilize large numbers of people to do something risky, it's good to think through the leadership structure. And this obviously applies not just to, think about what was achieved in 1917. I mean, this is basically, I think you can understand it better now after going through all this detail about the military thing. You had a general staff at the beginning of that revolution. In February 1917, you had 8,000 members of the Bolshevik Party. These were experienced people. These were people that had been through a lot. The Revolutionary Party had grown, had collapsed, had grown again in 1912, 1913. World War I starts, it collapses again. It's demoralizing. You need people, if you're going to be in it for the long haul and go through all of that, you need people who have a long view of history and understand what they're really doing at a deep level, and are not just going to be swayed by how things are going in the recent period. So that's the cadres. Over time, you forge something that is based on depth and clarity. Well, that's what you had essentially at the beginning of 1917. Now, they put forward an idea, right? The idea is, yes, you've overthrown the Tsar. The February Revolution overthrew the Tsar, but set up a capitalist government, a provisional government in its place. Lenin's message is, we're not going to be part of this government. It says it's a revolutionary government. It's not. It needs to be overthrown as well. We need to bring the working class to the realization that this is not their government, and that in order to achieve the basic material, the immediate urgent demands that the working class made this revolution for, like we need something to eat, we need to stop sending our youth to the front into a meat grinder. In order to achieve that, you have to overthrow the capitalists. This is the message. Yeah? This is the program.
You have to overthrow the capitalists?
All power to the Soviets.
Wow.
So this 8,000 is now the cadre there to transmit the message. Like the incident command begins, right? Now, here's what we need to do. Go out and spread it. And you have agitators who know how to connect with the crowd. And you have correspondents who know how to produce leaflets. And you've built up an apparatus of media that...
They're telling you exactly what they're going to do. Let's just go back to the beginning.
This government, it says it's a revolutionary government. It's not. It needs to be overthrown as well. We need to bring the working class to the realization that this is not their government. And that in order to achieve the basic material, the immediate urgent demand.
Excuse me. I already told you your job right now is to sit in the back of the class and to listen. And if you have a question, you're allowed to speak, but you're not allowed to speak if you don't have a question. So listening, asking questions, that's all you're allowed to do here right now. When you start learning things and you start actually understanding what's going on, then we will listen to your opinion.
That the working class made this revolution for. Like, we need something to eat, you know, we need to stop sending our youth to the front into a meat grinder. In order to achieve that, you have to overthrow the capitalists. This is the message. This is the program, right? All power to the Soviets. So this 8,000 is now the cadre there to transmit the message. Like, the incident command begins, right? Now, here's what we need to do. Go out and spread it. And you have agitators who know how to connect with the crowd. And you have people, correspondents, who know how to produce leaflets. And you've built up an apparatus of media that, as Lenin said, you need to build a machine.
Oh, wait.
And build it up.
That asshole's actually in the DSA? Do you guys know the trick that communists always play when you call them out on their bullshit? What is the trick that communists always play when you call them out? They say, we don't want to take your stuff. We're not going to take your personal property. We're just going to take private property. What did that asshole do earlier? What did I have to correct that asshole on? I gave him a very explicit definition of private property ownership, which, by the way, we have on video and know by heart because we watch these people all the time. What did the DSA socialists say? That's not what we want. We are not going to take your stuff. You're confusing personal property with private property. But of course, because we listen to these people all the time, we know what they're talking about. So no more gaslighting, DSA. No more gaslighting. Now we know not to listen to a fuck off thing you have to say. If you want to listen and watch communism with us, you're more than welcome to do that. I promise you that we know more about your ideology than you do. But don't ever come into my chat again with, you're not right about what private property means. You're talking about personal property. We know how to spot that trick. We know exactly what your fucking language means. Don't gaslight people.
To a degree of perfection that you can be able to inform the working class of Petrograd overnight. That's exactly what they built. And they informed the working class many steps of the way, night after night. Posters all over the streets of Petrograd. They were communicating. The whole thing is like, you've built a massive apparatus capable of communicating on a massive scale, communicating to millions. Now, how do you build an army of communicators? Well, you have to have a lot of discussion and political clarity, and those people need to have depth. And being a good agitator means being rooted in a very thorough, very deep, very well-rounded understanding of the issues, so that you can say, this is getting to the heart of it. You can cut through something, make it very simple. Plekhanov, one of the founders of Russian Marxism, explained the difference between propaganda and agitation. Propaganda is explaining many ideas to small numbers of people. We're talking what we're doing: books, theory, a view of history, right? A consistent ideology, a thorough philosophical foundation. That's propaganda. Agitation is few ideas to many people, but you can't just choose one or the other. There's a sequence to this. In order to create agitators who are effective, who are able to connect with the crowd, you have to train them in propaganda, very thorough training in Marxism. And at that level, then you have a Fiona Lully who can get on GB News and just send zingers and expose the hypocrisy of the ruling class.
We've seen from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That is an anti-Semitic chant calling for the eradication of Israel, the eradication of Israelis, and the eradication of Jewish people.
No, you're a liar. You're a liar.
And when a Tory politician says, aren't you going to defend Britain?
When threats are growing, it requires all of Britain to lean in, as we've done in the past, hesitantly though at first, to say we're going to stand up and we're going to be firm and we're going to defend Britain.
There is no all of Britain. There's you guys and there's everyone else, right? If Putin is a threat to the working class in Britain, I don't trust Keir Starmer, I don't trust David Lammy, I don't trust the defense companies, I don't trust the billionaires, I don't trust the establishment as people who are going to defend the working class in Britain.
A class perspective, very simple. Well, 9/10 of the revolution was winning over the working class to a revolutionary program. And what Lenin understood as early as, probably back in those Tsarist prison cells, is that you need to train cadres very thoroughly in Marxist theory and unwavering Marxist theory. It's like we have to fight eclecticism. We don't take a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Marx, Engels, Lenin, Trotsky, they were the ones who got to the root of it. And their view is consistent. When you read one, you're reading all four, and you realize that. And any real Marxist when you realize it, and you can't unrealize it. There's one Marxism. There's not many Marxisms. And when you understand it, then you see its power. We're trying to build something around that realization, and that's what Lenin understood. That is the thing that you have to do. Very few people have understood it through history, but we are the thread of those who have understood it in this international. If you think about it, it's kind of like you have an uprising is also one of these emergencies that's going to have an incident command set up, and they're going to have a general staff to respond to it. And it's going to be a pretty serious thing. Now, it's going to be essentially cadre versus cadre, right? Like one structure of leadership and response versus another structure of leadership and response.
See, I appreciate this. I told someone to ask questions and they asked questions. Okay. Do they need to be violent or peaceful revolution? Okay. Do they believe it needs to be a violent or peaceful revolution? These people believe it needs to be violent because these people do not believe in the electoral process. So there are two different types of socialist groups. There are revolutionaries and there are reformers. No, DSA. No. No one's asking you. Time out. No one's asking you for information. There are two different types of socialists. There's revolutionary socialists and there's reformist socialists. Reformist socialists, both of these groups want a post-capitalist society, but they have different ideas about how to get there. The DSA asshole that I just timed out, he is a reformer, which means he believes in working within the electoral system to make slow incremental change over time. That's how you have a peaceful revolution. There would probably need to be some violence at the end, but overall they anticipate they want to take control of the government and through elections and do things that way. Revolutionary groups like the RCA, they don't believe in elections. So how are you going to have a peaceful revolution? They don't believe in elections. They don't participate in elections. They don't run candidates for elections. The only way to get to where they want to go is a violent overthrow of the government. The Civil War is not going to be red versus blue. It's not going to be Democrat versus Republican. Republicans are way too lazy. They never leave their houses anyway. They never do anything except go to Trump rallies. As soon as Trump is out of office, Republicans are never doing anything ever again. The Civil War is going to be radical revolutionary socialists like these guys versus the federal government.
And in a revolution, you have one of them win. One of them was more prepared than the other. And one of them was more ready to enlist support in terms of numbers than the other one was. And the one that thought it had solid command, see, the military structure is about command and control. That's openly what they say. We're not about command and control. We're about political clarity. We're about truth. I mean, dialectical materialism is the thing that's guiding us. And so which one is ultimately stronger? I mean, revolutions, once you have mobilized the working class, the other one can melt away very quickly. I say this because we have left down to us a pretty awesome remnant of history from 1917. Trotsky reproduced a dialogue that took place among Tsarist officers when the February Revolution had basically had won, but they're realizing in the Central Command that they're realizing this fact through this conversation. And here's two generals, General Ivanov and General Khabalov. Okay, let me just read through the thing. How many troops are in order and how many are misbehaving? Khabalov's reply. I have at my disposal in the Admiralty building 4 companies of the Guard, 5 squadrons of cavalry and Cossacks, and 2 batteries. The rest of the troops have gone over to the revolutionists, or, by agreement with them, are remaining neutral. Soldiers are wandering through the town singly or in bands, disarming officers. Which railroad stations are guarded? Response. All the stations are in the hands of the revolutionists and are strictly guarded by them. In what parts of the city is order preserved? Response. The whole city is in the hands of the revolutionists. Wait, hold it. There's more. The telephone is not working. There's no communication between different parts of the city. What authorities are governing the different parts of the city? Response, I cannot answer this question. Are all the ministers functioning properly? Sir, the ministers have all been arrested by the revolutionists. What police forces are at your disposal at the present moment? None whatever. What technical and supply institutions of the War Department are now in your control? I have none. What quantity of provisions is at your disposal? There are no provisions at my disposal. How many weapons, artillery, and military stores have fallen into the hands of the mutineers? All the artillery establishments are in the hands of the revolutionists. What military forces and staffs are in your control? The chief of staff of the district is in my personal control. With the other district administrations, I have no connections.
Wow.
So in the key moment, I mean, all of the command and control counts for nothing if the whole mechanism breaks down. And history has shown many times the kinds of conditions that lead it to break down. That is, comrades, if our cadre are powerful enough, if they're strong enough, if they're prepared enough. And that is the whole point of the grounding in theory. How do we know how far along we are in creating a revolutionary military academy, a red West Point, a revolutionary war college? Well, I think you have a good example that came out not long.
A red West Point? Again?
Point of the grounding in theory. How do we know how far along we are in creating a revolutionary military academy, a red West Point, a revolutionary war college? Well, I think you have a good example that came out not long ago from Denmark. This was something that was circulated in RCI Bulletin 23. Now, we explained that the Danish section is doing quite well, right? It's a growing section, fast-growing section, very energetic in a small country. The working class of Denmark is just over 3 million people, which means that we have almost one comrade per 10,000 workers. And when they reach 1,000 comrades, there'll be one comrade per 3,000 workers. If what they had right now was like the U.S. population in terms of the working class, it would be like having 13,000 comrades right now in Denmark. So they're not doing bad, but that's why they're getting on the radar of the ruling class and their establishment media. And the largest paper in Denmark, the largest liberal paper, had this expose of a journalist that went undercover. Well, he says I infiltrated. He says by infiltrating, I talked to a very eloquent, open-minded, friendly young communist. I expressed interest in Marxism and immediately got invited to a branch meeting. And he said, I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was going to be something absurd, probably, like people dressed up like Soviets or old-time nostalgics about the Soviet Union, or maybe hippies. I didn't know. Well, the title of the article is something like, I infiltrated a communist meeting. I expected something absurd. What I found was the key to victory. Allow me to read to you extensively from this article. Because the way he says it, the way one of our class enemies says it, is almost better than any comrade could have. The presentation, he's describing the meeting, right? There's a young comrade gives a lead off. The presentation, which was well prepared and well formulated, the level of depth of the discussion would take most people's breath away. Even relatively inexperienced attendees were able to recite and understand Marxist works and argue articulately from them. All of them had a broad knowledge of everything from socioeconomic conditions and economic history to war history and philosophy. The Revolutionary Communist Party must be said to be able to educate and train its members to a degree that enables them to clearly and convincingly present the Marxist message. Literally, even the newest members, the lowest common denominator, were at a higher level than the average Dane and the average liberal. Despite great diversity of age groups and educational backgrounds, all members, new and old, are apparently encouraged to immerse themselves intellectually and study Marxist theory thoroughly. In addition, they learn to formulate their knowledge as arguments, to write speeches, to debate, and so on.
Fuck off, DSA. Fuck off. The RCA has grown significantly over the last several years. I would bet all the money in my bank account, which is probably more substantial than yours because I'm a capitalist and you're not. I would bet all the money in my bank account that I have known about the RCA longer than you have. I would bet all the money in my bank account that You've never watched half of the content on the RCA that we have watched. I bet all the money in my bank account that you've never infiltrated their recruiting calls, which we have. We know exactly how they're recruiting. We know exactly how they're growing. We know exactly how exponentially their growth has been over the last several years. You have more people in your organization. You know the Revolutionary Communists of America spit on you guys. They hate you guys. Most of the real communists, like, you're not even considered to be a real fucking communist. You're a DSA member. You're a reformist. We watched the Denver Communists the other day shit talk you guys so aggressively. They said that you guys are traitors. You guys are sellouts. You guys don't know what the fuck you're doing. You guys are never going to be successful. They don't like you at all. So you know what? You can try to make us believe that they're not popular all you want. You guys are nothing more than a pass-through for the real far left. The only reason we even pay attention to you guys is because of what's going on in New York. Usually, you're not even that interesting. Fucking champagne socialists. Exactly. Basically woke progressive trash.
With the result that even a relatively new and young member of the party can be considered a top-tuned, well-oiled machine when it comes to defending the Marxist-Leninist vision. Another observation, although the 2-hour-long debate covered a wide range, all topics and questions were considered from a Marxist perspective. In formulating their arguments, the party's members took an uncompromising point of departure from the theory behind the party's ideology. He's like, wow, they're consistent. They all have the same view. And this is the conclusion. However much we may disagree with the Marxist worldview, we must recognize that part of Marxism's gains can be attributed to the fact that without apologizing for itself, it actually tries to deliver clear.
Yes, Zoran Mandami is absolutely a communist, but he's also a reformer, so he believes in working within the electoral process. He does not believe in the violent overthrow of the government. That's why he's working within the electoral process. That's why he ran for mayor of New York. He is a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. He's been a member of the Democratic Socialists of America since like 2017. He's been around that organization a long time. That's how he was able to mobilize the DSA in New York City to get the nomination in the first place, because the entire DSA threw all their weight behind him and were out registering voters for him, doing a get out the vote turnout for him, targeting specific districts and stuff like that. So yes, he's a communist, but he's a reformist, and he's also considered to be a traitor. We just watched the Denver Communists this past week talk about how absolutely not. You should go watch Socialism Saturday. The Denver Communists said, no, you shouldn't vote for Zoran Mandami. Zoran Mandami is already a sellout to our cause because he's running within the capitalist system in the first place. And even if he gets elected, the bourgeois is going to usurp him anyway. So the real communists are not actually that excited about Zoran Mandami because they think that he's a sellout to capitalism. But he's going to win. Like, Zoran Mandami is 100% going to win. There is nothing the Republicans or Andrew Cuomo can do to match the organizing of the DSA in New York City. There's nothing. They're so, like, the DSA has got that fucking locked. I just went inside the DSA national call last night and recorded them. The DSA in New York is absolutely going to win that race. It's not going to even be close. But that doesn't mean that real communists actually support him, because they don't.
And unequivocal answers to humanity's problems, big and small. We must realize, here's the end, we must realize that the ideological battle is still raging. And that in order to win this battle, we cannot deny the need for a serious weapons upgrade. If you are in doubt about how to do it, I can recommend a visit to the Revolutionary Communist Party. Every cell secretary, every comrade who's leading a cell or any other unit of the party, write this down, RCI Bulletin 23. You can print this out, study it, mark it up, and ask yourself, is my cell at this level? Are we producing this kind of atmosphere? Is this our environment? Is this where our training ground is at? And if not, what's our plan? How are we going to get to this point where we're producing this? And it wasn't just accidental. It's not like the Danish comrades just, they swim in Bolshevism and then they're just ready to go. Hard work produces this result. This means that everyone, and it says it in the bulletin, they expected, look, we're going to have a contact is going to be there. All right, everyone studies and prepares and does the reading and comes with something thoughtful to deliver. And the result is you ever have one of these cell meetings that's just electric and it just leaves you feeling with energy, and then you can go and build and you can get through another week and you can keep, that's the thing that we're trying to conjure, a factory of that. That doesn't happen automatically, and it happens only when the comrades go into it saying, that's what I want to do. I want to strengthen my cell. I'm ready to bring something. Let's bring some fire this week to the cell meeting and do it each time. The results are going to be an atmosphere that produces cadres. Now, this was the way the Russian revolutionaries did it. It's not like, I mean, it was hard and it was boring and it took years and it was not glorious. And that was part of it. And a lot of people went through the ranks and, burnt out or disappeared or got active for a little while. I mean, the things that we're up against, we're not up against a czarist officialdom that's raiding our offices and, rounding up our comrades and sending us to prison. We don't have to worry about those things, but we're up against the pressures of life, like life under capitalism. And that means too many people, they come into the ranks. Oh, this is cool. I like this. They don't really get it, what we're doing. And eventually the pressures of life are like, okay, I'm going to go do this. And I got other priorities in my life. Maybe I'll come back. And a lot of them are coming back and it's going well. But basically, what does that mean? It means that the general staff isn't quite at the level that it needs to be in order to impart the clarity to those ranks that are coming in about what we're doing. That's why we wrote this organizational resolution, to try and help with that. Basically, it's like, if you understand Bolshevism, if you can impart to people who are new, welcome in, this is your party. But you're not just here because you're a communist and we're a communist and we're all going to talk about communism. And you're not just here because you agree with our views and you want it to be with a group of like-minded people. What you're joining is a training grounds. That's the thing we need to find the way to explain to contacts and new comrades. Like, you are joining an ideological training grounds that will make a revolutionary out of you. And it's going to be hard and it requires your commitment, but there's a massive reward.
You are joining a counter-revolutionary training ground where we will make a counter-revolutionary out of you, just so you guys know. I'm going to take this and apply it to you. To
contacts and new comrades. Like, you are joining an ideological training grounds.
You are joining an ideological training ground where we will make a counter-revolutionary out of you.
That will make a revolutionary out of you. And it's going to be hard and it requires your commitment, but there's a massive reward.
It's going to be hard.
Just get a taste of this Marxism. Yep. Once you see this clarity,
massive reward.
That's the thing that can drive us, but you need to have that kind of environment.
Yeah, when you join this community, you get a massive reward of being massively black-pilled and knowing just how fucked we are on any given day. And then, you may start doing drugs and drinking an awful lot, but at least you know the truth, and you have friends that you're gonna spend your time with until the left takes over. So congratulations. You guys are all totally fucked now. The red pill sucks. You can't take the blue pill after you take this pill. And that's the reward that you earned by joining the counter-revolutionary organization. Oh, no one mind me. It's only Tuesday. Yeah, you're welcome.
Produces that result.
Yeah, you're
How
welcome.
did it start in the early days?
Congratulations.
Plekhanov was a founder of Russian Marxism. Throughout the history of Bolshevism, Lenin and Trotsky were always even though he became a Menshevik and he lost his bearings, but he played a role in starting this thing out in the 1880s when there was no Marxists in Russia. And he laid the seeds, and it was patient, very thorough philosophical work. They said Lenin and Trotsky recognized that Plekhanov educated an entire generation of revolutionaries. But in these early days, what were these discussion groups like? Well, I have here a passage from a memoir of an industrial worker who had participated in one of these propaganda circles in the 1880s. This is how they described it. The propagandist acquainted us with the struggle for a better future. He pointed out the path of our movement, the broad outlines of socialism, and told us we will attain this future only by the...
Ain't this the truth? Once you join my cult, you can never leave. It's not because you can't. Like, you can actually physically go. I'm not going to try to stop you or anything, but you can never leave because you will see the world as it actually is. And once you learn the language, once you have been fully initiated into my cult and you are fluent in the language of the left and you see what's actually going on, it's not that you can't leave the cult. You can. Like, no one can force you to be on my YouTube channel, but you're never going to be able to leave because you will never see the world the same way again. But that only happens for the initiated. It takes a long time to get initiated. And then one day you just wake up and you see. And it's in your head forever. You can never unknow it. It's over. It's over after that. And then you're permanently in the cult. The burden of knowledge. You're permanently in the cult, even if you leave the cult, even if I yell at you, even if you don't like me, even if you don't like my tone, even if you don't like my voice, you will be forever in my cult once you know. and there's nothing you can do about it. So we may as well all just get along. Like, there's no reason to fight. There's no reason to insult each other. There's no reason, because we are all each other halves. Because whether we like it or not, we are stuck together until the Marxist Revolution. And then once the Marxist Revolution happens, we can just look at everyone and say, we tried to tell you, assholes. We tried to tell you. No one would listen to us. No one, they laughed at us. They insulted me. They smeared me. They defamed me. They called you guys all mindless flying monkeys. No. We were right. We were right all along, and you didn't listen, and now you're all in the fucking gulag. How do you like it now? Yes, they're Marxist-Leninists. Yeah. Yeah, this is true, Bill. There is a certain freedom in knowing emphatically that we are completely and totally fucked. And it's kind of like, I was thinking about this. I was, like, Ozzy Osbourne died today, and that's really sad. But Ozzy Osbourne lived a pretty epic life. And, it's actually rather cool and iconic that he got that last show in, because that was just awesome. But I was thinking about it. I'm like, Ozzy Osbourne was only 76 years old. That's like actually not that old. And, that's, I'm getting older. Obviously, I'm 29 perpetually, but I am getting older. And I'm like, man, that's not that far away from me. And so I was like, what do I want to do? Let's say I'm going to die at 76 years old. I have a little over 30 years. What do I want to do? Like, I can do whatever the fuck I want. What do I want to do? Like I only have a limited amount of time here. We are totally and completely fucked anyway. I may even see the Marxist Revolution in my lifetime at the rate we're going. So what do I want to do with my life? And what do I want to do with my time? And what do I want my legacy to be? And do I really care what idiots on the internet have to say about it? Do I really care if people think I'm weird? Do I really care if people think I'm crazy? Because is that really what I'm going to worry about when I die? Is that like, oh, all those people on the internet thought I was fat and ugly and crazy? It's like, that's stupid. So there is a certain amount of freedom in knowing that we're totally fucked, and in just doing whatever you want to do with that information.
Efforts of the working class as a whole. But to be an organizer of the working class, it is necessary to be a cultivated person, to whom others could turn with their questions, and from whom they could receive definitive answers. Therefore, it is necessary to discipline and cultivate oneself. It is necessary to learn by a definite program. A good propagandist must be able to answer such questions as why there is day and night, seasons of the year, and eclipses of the sun. He must be able to explain the origin of the universe and the origin of species. In the program must be included history, the history of culture, political economy, the history of the working class. This is depth. This is the way you train a foundation that can sustain a revolutionary movement. And you cannot skip this step. We have comrades that are doing this kind of thing. We're reading Reason and Revolt and learning about materialism. I've visited comrades and I've seen, wow, our ranks are buzzing with enthusiasm for materialism and dialectics. And this is an awesome thing. This is where it begins. There's a sequence to these things. And you can't go straight to the exciting, now we're going to do the labor movement. We're going to take things by storm and we're going to march in. The whole what is to be done was an argument against people that just wanted to jump to the fun part. Let's storm the fortress of the stars. And Lenin's like, okay, yeah, you and what army? The whole thing is, how are you going to build this thing? Lenin understood you need the depth first. The rest will come from that. You need the clarity of Marxism, and you need a very thorough training in this. And that takes time, and it's not fun. It's not fun to be told, this is a patient task. It's going to take years. That's what we're telling people. That's the bitter pill. But I think we're doing a pretty good job so far of convincing plenty of people that it is worth it and that it's a rewarding process to engage in. Lenin argued that the press was central to this. Now, this is another thing that people didn't understand back then. They don't understand it now. But I think there's basically an argument here in what is to be done and in where to begin that has been overlooked by the vast majority of people that read this stuff. The press, Lenin was arguing, it's not just that Lenin loved newspapers. Like, yeah, this is cool. You got to be able to, sell these things. And that's not what he was getting at. He was saying that the press is a benchmark for something else. It's a proxy. It's a stand-in. See, if you can do this thing, then you can do this other thing. And it's a practical metric for your political strength in general to be able to produce media, to produce a press regularly, a podcast, to be able to produce a flow of information that analyzes what's happening. Now, if this flow of information is crisp and clear and precise, if it's effective, it'll spread. If it's blurry and general and vague, it'll spread. It won't spread as well, you know? The whole thing, the question of influence, again, we want to jump to the exciting part. We want influence. We want 10,000 people. Well, if you just enlist 10,000 people, but you don't have anything to say to those people, like they're going to look for, okay, what's our marching orders? 10,000. We're here to sign up for the Bolshevism. What do? You need a general staff ready to say, okay, well, you unit, come with me. Here's what we're going to do. Boom. And train them and start explaining things. And you need to be able to understand events thoroughly. It begins with understanding. See, the training we're trying to imbue comrades with isn't just training like our heads are in the clouds and now we're the intelligentsia and we're studying French philosophy and now we know this thing that the rest of the working class doesn't know and we're Marxist. That's not the point, comrades. You're trying to arrive at a level of clarity that is an instrument that can allow you to get back to the concrete at a higher level, to say the thing in the way that it needs to be said, that it lands, to be able to deliver clarity in a way that no other force in the political landscape is delivering. When we can do that, then we're ready for influence. And the press, the media, and I mean that broadly, the booklets we produce, the books, the things that we're producing, and against the stream and the Communists of America, everything we're using in order to try and get our ideas out there is kind of a benchmark for our political strength and our ability to enlist support and to get influence. And that strength manifests by you all consuming the media and spreading it. If it's effective, if it's helpful, you get an idea that's like, okay, this explained it so well. Now I understand. And I've had that moment many times, like the article, and there's an article in here. Wow, now I get de-dollarization in the bond market. That was like, whoo, that one went over my head. And this article explained it. And then, comrades, remember, I went into the office and I couldn't stop talking to everyone about, you got to read this article. You got to read this article. Media department will circle up. We're going to read this article together. Can the EC have a discussion about this article? This is the way the media is supposed to work. It's like, it's not just written to entertain. It's not just written to inform. It's meant to be the ammunition, that you pick up and then you use. And so if you have a strong media department, if you have a strong apparatus for producing this, then you're, here's the other thing. Here's the other media department that we're up against is Steve Bannon's. I've had this on my mind.
Oh, yeah?
And comrades know this is another sort of pet topic of mine. He's a vile reactionary. This is one of our enemies, one of our most determined enemies. But something about it, I find it effective, and when your enemy is effective, you need to pay attention to what's going on there.
Real.
And what Steve Bannon is doing is, his view, he's a fundamentalist Catholic, and he's a vile xenophobe. Everything comes down to the immigrants, right? All the problems, everything he says is like, this is what the immigrants are doing, and he wants to give Trump a backbone to fight back, to railroad the courts. Like, that's his program. But what is he doing? He's taking in the news and he's churning out propaganda in a prolific way. Like the podcast of Steve Bannon is called War Room, and they produce like 4 to 6 hours of podcast streaming content every single day, 6 days a week. And it's taking the headlines of the news, the headlines of everything that's happening. And Steve Bannon has shared, like, this is my media routine. I read the Financial Times every day, and I read the Guardian and the BBC. Steve Bannon is consuming this, and he has a team of like 15 people working on his podcast, and they're all consuming the news and they're reading it. And in his war room, there's a fireplace, and above the fireplace they have MSNBC. That's like, we have to listen to the enemy and what they're saying. And
MSNBC is the enemy. Okay.
Are like taking clips. And the beginning of his episode, if you watch any of this stuff, the beginning is like just a video montage of clips. This is what the mainstream media is saying. Just a couple seconds of this and a couple seconds of that. And he gives you a feel like this is the message out there. And then he comments on it. And it's the volume of what they're able to pump out. That's what allows him to be directing a current of public opinion. People can follow that. And then you guess what? There's people that will, maybe they're workers. Maybe some of them are like on the shift listening. And while they're on their shift, they're like, this stuff is going into their head. We need to make the revolutionary communist version of this. We need to counter this and out we need to outdo them. We need to out-organize them. We need to out-train them and out-discipline them and out-study them and out-cadre them. That is the force that we're up against. And I think if you see how they're doing it and how effective it is, then you understand this is why we're saying the paper is important. And then what's this joker, the liberal Hassan? Is that the... And he's like...
Of course, a trot is selling a newspaper.
The liberal
Pamphlets
Hassan.
and newspapers. Virtually everything that you search online that is a Marxist webpage with things written on it will almost always be operated by a trot. These are in the socialist movement. These guys are like the archivists, okay?
Okay, yeah, they don't get it. They don't see why we're doing it. We understand why we're doing it.
You're right.
And we need to use this to train up our cadres.
Because he's
and
not
really,
a communist.
We don't have a second to spare.
Yeah.
That was the point on the media.
Didn't Hassan Piker just sound like that DSA asshole that was in here a second ago that I permanently banned? I bet that DSA asshole watches Hassan Piker.
To bring this all home, comrades, I think it's important that, you know, we wrote this as an instrument to put into your hands to help recruit. If you understand what the party's strategy is better, then you can get people on board more easily. And you can also help comrades who are new, who are building up a commitment and saying, okay, I'm trying to understand what this is. See, when I joined, it took a while. There's an interval involved. Like, you don't just join and then boom, I'm ready to be a Bolshevik, like a lifelong committed soldier. It takes time before it took me a couple of years. Like, I joined and my commitment was like, I'm very interested. I was very enthusiastic, but I was like, yeah, communist. I'm surrounded by communists. I'm a communist. Yay. But it took me a while to realize what this party is going to do and what role we're going to play in history. And when I did, then everything changed. And you can't just artificially like give that in a package to people. It takes time for that to sink in. Like, we are going to overthrow capitalism. We are not just saying these things. We are going to do it, comrades.
RCA! 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 RCA!
We've had a good start. I think that this party has become a factory of cadres like we've never seen before. And I see it every time I visit an area, every time I interact with comrades that I haven't seen for a while. Like, the development is happening at a pace that I have never seen before. And I think that's awesome. And really, that is the only metric of our success. That's really the thing we're trying to do here. There is a surface appearance, and then there's the reality that's happening beneath the surface. And the reality is, we are a cadre organization, and we're developing cadres, and that's the only metric that matters. What matters is not the surface number. What matters is the core of cadres, the general staff that are coming out of this military revolutionary academy, who know what they're doing in life and who know what their role in history is, and who are able to impart that to others. That is the real metric of our success. Now, there's a lot of practical things that could be said. It's always important to bring this home, and I think Trotsky had the ability to go into the theory realm and then to come back down and to bring it home. And we had a quote at the end of this resolution when the first time he was addressing Americans as comrades in the left opposition in this letter. I think it was from 1927. Wasn't? I think it's kind of a cool moment when he's like first corresponding with the American comrades. Well, listen to what he says. We must not for a minute lose sight of the fact that the might of American capitalism rests more and more upon a foundation of the world economy with its contradictions and crises, military and revolutionary. This means that a social crisis in the United States may arrive a good deal sooner than many think and have a feverish development from the beginning. Hence the conclusion, it is necessary to prepare. And he says, for the majority of the socialists, he's talking about those people that are just kind of like socialists on the side. Like, yeah, I'll overthrow capitalism with you on the weekend. But they're not really like, he's understanding, if you want to build something, you can't do it in that way. You can't like half it. You can't just like phone it in. For the majority of the socialists, and I have in view the governing strata, their socialism is a side issue, a second-class occupation accommodated to their leisure hours. He goes on to say, these gentlemen consecrate 6 days of the week to their liberal or commercial professions, On the seventh day, they consent to occupy themselves with the saving of their souls. These are not intellectual opponents, but class enemies. He's talking about the Second International in reality, but then he brings it home. Here's what you do. Bringing it home means say, here's what you do. Like, what is the takeaway from this? Don't just leave it in the abstract. He calls on them to find the road to the youth, to dedicate their time to training up the cadres. He says, find a few contacts, young workers, like they could be teenagers, get in touch with them and develop them into cadres. He says, remain in contact, continual contact with them, help them in their self-education, train them in the questions of scientific socialism, and systematically introduce them to the revolutionary politics of the proletarian vanguard. What it means to be a cadre is not like you learn so much and you get so smart and then now you got it and you're a cadre. You don't get a rank, you don't get a badge, you don't get said that now you're a cadre. Yay, that's not the point. That's not the point. What your measure, being a cadre means you have something to offer to other comrades and you can lift them up. Your ability to build other cadres is the thing that matters. Your ability to inspire, not to impress. Your ability to educate and to bring things out in other comrades and to build their confidence in the ideas of Marxism in the revolutionary program. It's a thing that you can, it's not about you don't speak in order to shine and show the comrades. You speak in order to help deliver clarity. That is the thing that a cadre is able to do. So I think, comrades, if we use these methods, and I think we know what we need to do. I mean, I've seen it. It's popping through the discussions all weekend. It's quite clear what we need to do. And I think we're about to do it on a scale that we've never seen before. I mean, the recruitment and the education of revolutionary cadres, if we use these methods, the methods that they've seen in Denmark, we are going to become a force like we haven't seen before. We will become a household name. It'll be a matter of time before the RCA starts sweeping aside any other left group. There's no competition out there. We're living in a theoretical desert. There's no Marxists out there. There's nobody talking about the things that we're talking about. There's nobody training cadres the way we're training. We have no competition. We have a wide open field. We need to get to work. That's the thing that we need to do. And if we do this, comrades, we will become a household name. We'll become the worst nightmare of the ruling class. And we will become the only hope for the working class.
All right, well, the Revolutionary Communists of America seem to be building a military-style organization in which they are putting education at the forefront to try to train people how to be ready for the revolution when it inevitably pops off, and building an organization that is specifically designed to overthrow the federal government. Nothing to see here, per usual. Per usual. Hey, while this was happening, let me just show you why the left will inevitably win. While this is happening, someone on Twitter was talking about me. They were responding to Deborah here, who is an everyday therapist. Deborah is saying that I could explain why people are going to socialism because conservatives have no idea why the left is still popular, because the conservatives told everyone a couple months ago that the left was dead and over, and now they're having to explain why most young people have a favorable opinion of socialism because they didn't see that coming because conservatives are retards. This person responded, "It's very unfortunate that she hates Christians and Jews and believes in and attempts to cast witch spells. Her journalism is great, but she's toxic as hell to huge swaths of people who would otherwise be allies." Do you want to know why I hate Christians and Jews? Because Christians and Jews do shit like this all the time. It's not because they're Christian. It's not because they're Jewish. I will never hate someone just because they're Christian or just because they're Jewish. However, an awful lot of people seem to say shit like this that are Christian and Jewish, and some might argue that Christianity came from Judaism, so basically they're all Jewish. Her work on the left is the best on the internet, but I'm never going to use it, and I would rather watch my children starve and die in a Marxist utopia because she doesn't like Christian and Jews, and she once cast a spell on the internet. These people deserve to be in the gulag. They deserve to lose. I will, when the left wins, I will hand deliver these people to the gulag myself. And as they're crying and screaming and saying, how dare you do this? You're supposed to be an anti-communist. I'm going to say, yeah, I tried to be an anti-communist. I tried to warn all you assholes this was going to happen. And do you know what happened when I tried to warn you and showed you primary source evidence on the internet? You went around saying, well, I can't look at what the left is doing because Karlyn doesn't like Christians and Jews, and sometimes she casts spells and talks about tarot cards on the internet. You deserve to be in the gulag. You deserve to suffer. You deserve to starve. You deserve to watch your children suffer and starve. And I will laugh when it happens. And yeah, that's all she wrote. Hey guys, if you want to support the work I'm doing, if you are not one of those retarded assholes on Twitter and you actually understand why this stuff is important, and you can put aside things like me having spiritual beliefs that you don't agree with, head over to my Substack. It is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. We've already done 2 spy streams this week where we went inside live leftist trainings. We went inside a trade union training for opera singers and ballet people earlier today. It was crazy. They were so woke. They were talking about taking gender out of opera and ballet. I'm not even joking. I'm going to try to make some clips of it because it was funny. They were talking about how opera is inherently queer, and how they can't get roles when they're trans opera singers, and that's really the fault of the system. It was pretty great. You can find that over on the Substack for supporters. We also went inside the National DSA organizing call last night where they were talking about DSA candidates they're running all over the country, and that's another terrifying reality that people are going to have to grapple with sooner or later. You can find that archive over on the Substack, and if you appreciate work I'm doing and want to support it, the best way to do so is by signing up for a membership. $8 a month, $80 a year. You guys keep me in business. I have one more stream to do today, so I'm going to take about an hour and 15-minute break, and I'm going to go eat some dinner. And it's not even going to be anything good because I don't even know what food we have in the house. Victor, I think, just went grocery shopping, so I guess we'll see. Anyway, I'm going to go eat dinner, and then we're going to come back for Disenraged tonight at 9 p.m., and we're going to continue that first religion thing that we started talking about last week. I found a video of the guy who made that religion tree chart where he's talking about the tree of life of religion, of like the evolution of all the different religions and how it all came from animism, and then it sprouted up and it went all over the place. I spent some time looking at that chart today. It's actually really interesting. I don't know how accurate it is. I definitely have spotted some things that I'm like, I'm not sure if that's actually correct, but it is still interesting. And I found an interview with that guy, and we're going to talk about it and watch that interview in a little over an hour. And that's what we're going to do. And for now, I'm going to bid you adieu, and I'm going to go and cry for a while. And then I'm going to eat something for dinner, and I don't even know what, because I don't even know what food's in the house. Probably nothing fun. Probably nothing fun at all. All right. That's it. Hope everyone's as depressed as I am. I'll see you later. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Would you give me some idea?
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them. It influenced my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for the people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.